Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here on another beautiful day in the fall. It is so beautiful. Breaking news, the window is open once again. I don't think anyone will be in the background making noise here today, maybe not even the birds, but maybe the birds will be a pleasant sound. We're going to talk wrestling, a little bit of modern wrestling, a lot of classic wrestling, and wherever everything else takes us. I'm your host, the great Brian Last, and here he is, the man behind the cult of Cornette, the most in-demand man in professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Brian Last, if you had heard what it sounded like here in the office at Castle Cornette about 10 o'clock this morning, you would have had a complete nervous breakdown. It sounded like Hartsfield International Airport, the planes were landing, and you're making jolly jokes about opening your window because there's a droning going on in the background here. My new yard crew, my yard gentlemen that I got after last November, you'll remember. See, it was a November to remember when I banished Landon the yard guy. That clip's up on YouTube because we couldn't come to an agreement on the handling of the leaves here at the Castle grounds. The new folks were supposed to come yesterday, but they got delayed, and they've been here today since 9 o'clock this morning. And you're going to hear this ongoing, so I know you're going to sweat and shiver and shake like a dog shitting peach seeds about the various noises you're going to hear, but that's what happens down here down south in the fall time when you got to gather up the leaves. What do you get up there in the big city area? About 3 leaves, they fall down, you pick them up with one of those pokers, and that's it?
Yeah, we live out here in the sticks. We have a lot of leaves. You may have heard some of the noises in the past here on the program. I don't know if you noticed them. They were from...
Nobody ever notices your noises.
Well, you noticed them.
Mine are right here up front where you can hear them, get a good whiff of them.
Ugh. Well, you hear the raw noises before we edit anything or clean anything up. But we usually get 2 rounds of fall cleanup, and we've already had the first one, and now the rest of the leaves have come down, so we're ready for the second one.
Oh, it's a goddamn ongoing round. It's a 15-rounder down here at the castle, because I got picky because we were mulching the leaves, and this was the bone of contention between me and the former excommunicated Landon. We were mulching the leaves, but it's in the heavy areas in the back, on the hill, underneath all the trees, by the creek, the far end of the house. So many leaves were coming down. It was like a compost pile. And so now the new, the basic plan for this is that they have got 6 guys out there with those jetpack badass leaf blowers that they wear, and they just walk around and they look like Robbie the Robot. And they brought a big ass trailer and a few trucks and things, and they are blowing the leaves into giant mounds that look like Indian burial mounds. And then they can them into garbage cans and dump them into the goddamn trailer and stomp them like a bunch of grapes in Italy. And then they... Well, you've seen on I Love Lucy.
These examples you're using are ridiculous, but yes, go ahead.
What is ridiculous about that?
They stomp on them like a bunch of grapes, an Indian burial mound.
Well, see, you can easily picture these things. and then they put a big tarp over the fucking giant trailer full of leaves that looks like one half of Dolly Parton's brassiere. And then they stop me before I simile again. And then they drive them off to wherever you dump leaves at these days. And then they come back and, well, they got the front acre, they got the whole acre in the trailer. So it's about an acre a trailer. But it looks like they've vacuumed the place after they get finished. They blow it all up. And they've got this goddamn deal. They've worked this out to a fine science to where they can't get the trailer and the truck up on the hill and across the creek in the back in the far corner. They blow the leaves up somewhat, and then they get the riding lawnmower with what looks like some kind of snow shovel apparatus, and they push all the leaves down the hill to where they can get to it with the truck and trailer. And then they blow up the remaining stuff that the mower leaves behind, or the plower. And it's an amazing thing to watch. You ought to be here, Brian. You ought to be here right now.
Oh, it sounds so exciting.
Well, I was out there with popcorn. But you probably won't hear any of that also because apparently old Jay Sharknado, he used to work for the CIA doing their audio monitoring or something because he manages to clean all this up and then people scoff at you when you talk about our background noise.
I like the fact that you've set it up so that when you jump the rail in AEW and hit the ring, you have like a team of gardeners with you.
And they're all going to be wearing overalls and with those jetpack fucking badass leaf blowers.
Wouldn't that be funny? The guys run down the ramp and they turn on the blowers and blow them back.
Yeah, boom, and they take big bumps off the blow. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, goddamn. Oh, son of a bitch. Because I'll tell you, these things put out some fucking air. So it's going to be, there's Cornette and his band of gardeners. And there's been every other faction. There's been the motorcycle gangs and the black Muslim ripoffs and the Bariquas and all the, every kind of faction in the world. Here comes the gardeners, the botanists.
Well, there have been gardeners. I think Vince had a few of the luchadors as gardeners or driving lawn equipment, at least like 15 years ago,
and
20 years ago.
Hangnail Page.
Well, he's a gardener.
He was gifted a brand new lawnmower that he used to ride his little friends to get ice cream on. And folks, if you haven't been watching AEW for the past few years, and you're not alone, but I'm not making that up.
What is good about it too, your tagline could be like, you could be pretending you're nice to the babyface, and then you could say, you look like you can use a good blowjob right now.
right. Well,
you want to get blown? And then they come
Yeah, there you go. You want to get blown. Because the blow, just see, we need to take and workshop that one a little bit. But you want to get blown? You want to get blown, bad boy? Well, right here. Wum, 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 wum.
That could be the team. They could be the blowjobs.
I think we're still going to have to take that one back to the workshop.
The blowjobbers?
Right, there's something in there, but we're going to have to work on it a bit to get it fully erect.
All right. Well, this episode is certainly not fully erect yet.
And by the way, we're going to probably do this in pieces because the floor cleaners are coming. I'm not going to mention any brand names, but I mentioned it to you before we went on the air, and you're like, who are these? You've never heard of this. Apparently, you live in a hovel of filth, and you've never had anything clean, but we're having the kitchen floor clean, the grout on the kitchen floor and et cetera clean because we're getting new appliances in tomorrow, allegedly. That's what they've promised us. And so the floor cleaners are coming over. We're going to have to take a slight hiatus for that because they're going to be up here in the bathroom doing my bathroom floor grout as well as my shower. I got soapy residue in my shower corners, so they're going to take care of that for me. Busy time going on here at the castle.
Very exciting. Sounds
very exciting.
Sounds great.
Very thrilling. Oh, they're on the edge of their seats already on this program. I'm sorry. I'm taking very little fucking seriously today because I've prepared for nothing. I'm being completely surprised by whatever our topics may be here because this is your show. And I trended again while I was trying to clean out the garage and get ready for the appliances to be brought in. That I'm trying to lead a life of anonymity, anonymousness, and you keep dragging me back in.
That's right.
Are you there?
I am here. I was dragging myself back in. It took a second. But we are now 9 minutes into this program, Jim. Why don't we get this out of the way? Where could people go and get the finest Jim Cornette merchandise that you will actually sell?
Oh, golly. Well, there you go. That's something that we could bring up because that's another reason why I'm celebrating by having things cleaned because I am, for the first time in a couple of months, and we, as an ongoing business concern, Cornette's Collectibles, are caught up. The big pre-order chaos for the Midnight Express 40th anniversary 4-pack action figure set, once in a lifetime, never to be repeated, has been, I've signed everything. The Feather Bottoms have shipped almost everything, and the rest of it is packed and going out this week. When by the time they hear this, it's going out before Thanksgiving, a few days before, as a matter of fact. So everybody's stuff up to like November 10th, if you've ordered shit It's about to be in the mail or you've already got it. And so no better time to order more shit because now we got the time to actually send this stuff to you. And to be quite honest and completely forthcoming, even though we're all good at what we do, if you want something, especially the Midnight Express action figure sets by Christmas, if you're international, as of November 18th, by the time they hear this, please order right now. Because once it's out of our hands and into the international mail stream, anything can happen. Domestically, if you would love to get the action figure set, the full color book with milestones of our career and high points and championships and etc., fully illustrated, and the autograph picture and the certificate of authenticity in the United States, you don't have to order by Black Friday, but try to order by December 1st, which is a whole 2 days later. And we will be more than happy to get that to you by the holidays. Also, the t-shirts, the DVDs, the books, the Jim Cornette action figures, and of course, the Cult of Cornette membership certificates, because how can you be official without a certificate? JimCornette.com. Make your wrestling fan in your social circle or your family happy for the holidays. And that includes Festivus.
That's right. For the record, I just had to close the window. There's some kind of buzzing in the distance. But let's get a...
Wait a minute. There's a fly at 40 paces, and it's going to destroy the whole fucking program.
Well, we cannot have that, can we? Jim, before we get going with too much, and I know you watched Raw, we'll get to that in a little while. But why don't we first...
Well, I watched part of Raw. I didn't watch 3 hours of Raw, but I watched the good stuff.
One of the things happening in wrestling right now, you were trending once again, Mr. Trendy. Apparently, and I saw some of this, you got into a fight online, or a fight was started online, you jumped into it. I'm not exactly sure, but you and the artist formerly known as Top Dolla, AJ Francis.
My friend Flopper. Remember my friend Flicka?
Yes.
It was a horse.
Wow, I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my friend Flopper, he's you got your surf and turf. You got the horse and the marine life. And there wasn't really a fight because I tweeted him twice and then retweeted a couple of immediate comments that I saw that tickled me about what I tweeted him, and then went about my business again and I trended for a day and a half. But basically, I wish I could actually, and you might be able to, because what happened was in short version, before we get into granular detail, he tweeted about me without mentioning my name or tagging me, as the kids say, but slandering me nonetheless. And then when I saw it, because somebody sent it to me, obviously don't follow the feller, then I responded to him, and then apparently he blocked me and kept responding to me. But I wasn't sitting here anyway watching it, so I don't know exactly what he said from there, but he didn't come out very good in the exchange from what I was able to see. What do the kids call it? Ratioing?
I believe so, yes.
More people were against him than for him on this thing. Now, there were some people that were for him. The entire Bunch of Numbers family, everybody in the Bunch of Numbers family came out. And there was a bunch of people that, I don't know, you can tell maybe have never seen wrestling before. And there's like 107 people around the world that like him as an alleged rapper. They were on his side. But anyway, what instigated it was, and that's why I say I'm going to have to paraphrase, because since he's blocked me, I can't see
I'm blocked
any of
too.
the things.
I'm blocked too.
Blocked.
I couldn't see a
Okay.
lot of it also. I had to go find
I can't
articles.
see any of the things he's saying about me anymore. And by the way, I block people who become nuisances, who say smart-ass things to me or reveal themselves as Republicans. I block them. But they're basically unknown and or interchangeable random people around the world on Twitter, possibly not even real. If somebody is real, I don't block them if I believe that I'm going to have occasion to tell them how to modify their behavior again, because I want them to see it, right? It's only when I'm done with them and they're dismissed that I block them. Apparently, he jumps on the block and then keeps running his pie hole. But nevertheless, what he did was there was some girl that had tweeted not, huh?
Some girl, Billie Eilish. She's one of the biggest musical stars in the world right now. One of the biggest musicians in the world, I should say.
Okay, I was not aware of this. I saw her picture there, and she had tweeted not to him. Apparently, this is not a conversation to him. She had tweeted about being body shamed and how it affected her or whatever. I didn't get into that.
It was how it doesn't happen to men.
It doesn't happen to men. Okay, so, and what's her name again?
Billie Eilish.
She's a big music star.
Major star, yeah.
Well, there you go. So apparently he follows her. What genre of music is she in the rap genre also?
Well, no, he didn't retweet her. He retweeted another Twitter account's quote from her with a picture of her, but it wasn't actually her who tweeted it out.
Oh, good Lord. So is it her sentiment? And then somebody else retweeted it. And then he jumped in totally unsolicited to say, oh, golly, I've been body shamed. But the way he said it was, hey, a documented racist called me fat and a whale and a manatee. It can happen to men. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
And nobody batted an eye.
And nobody batted an eye. But he added a 60-year-old documented racist called me a fat and a whale and a manatee, and it can happen to men, and nobody batted an eye. So here is this, I assume, young girl, Billie.
Oh, yeah, she's like in her early 20s, I think.
And she's talking about being body shamed, and it doesn't happen to men. Well, probably in her industry and in her age group, that is a topic that's going on. I don't particularly care if anybody body shames me now. I'm fucking 60. I'm in better shape than I ever have been, but I'm not going to fucking have any goddamn surgery or do anything about it. So they can say whatever they like. But nevertheless, this fucking 40-year-old supposed grown adult, supposed man, supposed ex-football player, supposed pro wrestler is on there commenting on young women's goddamn problems. Like he's a victim of this too. Oh, a guy called me fat and a whale and a manatee. like he's commiserating with them.
Well, he quickly turned it though, if you saw that tweet, because then he wrote, because when I see him in person and take care of that business myself, don't start acting like I'm the bad guy. With a couple of emojis, a smiley face, and an angel emoji.
And something where water comes out of their eyes or something. I don't know.
No, there's a halo and then a big puffy red cheeks. So
he's got puffy red cheeks. But nevertheless, so he uses this opportunity to slander me, to cry about the names that I called him, and then to tell people that whenever he sees me, he's going to take care of that business. He goes from fucking Pippi Longstocking to fucking Suge Knight in the same tweet. So
that should be his rapper name, Suge Longstocking.
Suge Longstocking. But we're gonna dissect a couple of things about this. But first of all, that just didn't sit well with me. It kind of ticked me off that I'm being slandered and that he's a whiny little bitch and that he's threatening me. All in the same tweet.
And he didn't tag you or anything, but as soon as he wrote the word manatee, it was obvious who he was talking about.
Because some people said, hey, he could have been talking about Michael Cole. No, okay, Michael Cole very well might have called him a whale. But God damn it, if I'm giving up the trademark on manatee, I'm the one who said he looked like a manatee wearing basketball shorts, and I'm protecting that fucking original fucking intellectual property.
That's right. You said it. Travis drew it. So it's ours.
Yes. It's ours, baby. And then there are the other people go, well, so you you didn't fucking have an issue with him saying you were a racist? No, that's part of it. As a matter of fact, my first fucking tweet to him was, I'm 62, flopper. Get your facts straight. How can having an aversion to marine life that tries to wrestle be termed racist? I don't think whales and manatees are all bad, just the lousy workers. If your swimming is half as bad as your wrestling, you could be huge at SeaWorld.
Huge in caps.
Huge, huge. But anyway, so then that was where I quote tweeted his little fucking piece and showed everybody. Now you can't see it on my thing because he blocked me, by the way, the dickless little pussy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't call him little. But then I also, that was the quote tweet, but then I just replied to him directly because I thought when you reply to somebody directly, then it was just, you replying to them, right? But apparently a lot of people saw that too. And they liked that too. And I said to him personally, by the way, just between you and me, flopper, run your pie hole all you want about what you do, because we all know we'll never meet. And if we did, you'd do nothing and like it because you're not a gangbanger. You're a fat Uncle Phil. Blow me. And that was, I figured at that point I had told him all I needed to tell him. And I fucking, as I said, retweeted a couple of other things that people tweeted up real quick. And then I went about my business. And apparently, the Twitterverse went out of their minds. And people say, well, you didn't deny that you're a racist. Well, no, if he'd have said, hey, donkey fucker, I wouldn't have bothered to lead with, hey, I've never fucked a donkey. Let me explain something to you, flopper. Fuck you, first of all. Now that we've got that out of the way, I'll go into more detail. I'm not going to let some fucking nobody, a failure in the industry, a middle-aged fucking delusional nitwit that thinks he is somehow a celebrity and a superstar despite having displayed absolutely zero talent at one of his chosen professions. I don't know how you were at football because I don't watch football. But apparently if you were any good at football, we'd have fucking heard of you. You didn't do very good in the opening season of the reality show hosting because you came off as an obnoxious asshole trying to bully people out of their collectibles. And then you debut in such spectacular fashion as a professional wrestler that your own company not only fires you the first time, but then as I remember, Brian, for having a bad fucking attitude and going in and telling the office the way things were going to be when they fired the girl out of the group. And then they said, well, fine, how about all of you fucking go? And then he got a second chance. And within, a month? They were telling the announcers to make fun of him on the air. And then
which they have a long history of doing to guys they have no respect for.
Exactly. And people that piss them off, and people that they think are fucking idiots, and people that they are soon to release, which they did again after a stretch where they wouldn't even let him get in the ring in a tag team matches because he'd fucked things up. So flopper, I called you those names because that's what we see. And that's what we were talking about. I haven't gone on a personal crusade against you like I have against, Mr. Shitstain, because you're not that important to me. And we only mentioned you whenever you were actually disgracing the television screen. Otherwise, there was no reason for me to make you one of my pet projects. That may have ended. But since you're so offended because you're not a 40-year-old adult fucking grown man, a gangster, which we'll get to in a second, you're goddamn soft. And you're delusional about your standing in the community. And you think that you can either joust with me verbally, not only because of the difference in our verbal capacity, but also because, let me tell you something, Flopper, I spent more time sitting on Vince McMahon's toilet at his house in Greenwich than you spent working for him. So this is not a goddamn fair fight. And I'm just now doing it because you ran your fucking dick licker. So a lot of people, oh, you're so racist and you're homophobic and you're this and you're that because I called him a gangster. Brian, you're the
well, you said gangbanger
or a gangbanger. You weren't a gangbanger, right? You're Uncle Phil. Because he's threatening me with physical violence. He thinks he's Suge Knight. That's what people, but as we said, looks more like Suge Longstocking when we look at him on television. But Brian, you're the music industry insider. So is his whole television persona not meant to be a play on the gangster rap that the kids used to listen to?
Well, he was certainly flashing signs and trying to...
Well, no, Hit Row, isn't it Death Row? Isn't it Suge Knight? Isn't it fucking the gangster rap genre? Isn't it the gang signs and whatever the fuck they're dressing in?
Well, part of it is you don't know anything about rap, and I think that's...
Well, of course not.
Yeah, so you don't know what's gangster rap versus rap. I wouldn't call what they were trying to do gangster rap. I barely want to call it rap. I wouldn't call it gangster rap. But certainly he was presenting a certain image, and also...
And he's fake!
Also, he should have seen the writing on the wall when Swerve didn't come back. Because Swerve was the entire act. And there's nothing you said on the show that people in the locker room he sat in didn't say. There's nothing you have said on the show...
They were listening to it!
...that the commentators didn't say. I mean...
Except Manatee.
He's
except
mad at
Manatee.
Because you publicly said what everyone in that locker room, no one wanted him there, and he didn't make a good impression, and now he doesn't have a job in wrestling. And I don't know... I said that AEW should hire him because I did find joy out of how bad he was. And I could have watched more of that.
We did enjoy watching the awkwardness of his movements and how he looked like a disconnected bucket of body parts flummoxing across the ring, and we pointed that out, but I don't believe we were any harsher on him than we have on anybody else that's really, really, really bad, not good.
No.
But he was offended.
Because you body shamed him.
Because I body shamed. Actually, Mother Nature beat me to it.
By the way, enough of wrestlers crying about being body shamed. If you don't want to be body shamed, put on your fucking shirt and go get an office job. Body shame. You can't say a guy who was in shape got fat. You're body shaming him. You can't say a guy who's a big fat fucking whale is a manatee. You're body shaming him. Then don't be a wrestler. Then don't be on camera.
Don't be a bikini model, flopper.
What the fuck? It's not even just him, though. There's others. You're not allowed to say anything about wrestlers unless it's a positive thing. If you're saying anything else, it's not even that, like, you don't know anything or you're just a negative person. You're just horrible as a human being because how dare you say anything about the bikini model, like you said. It's so stupid.
Well, I'm not even going to debate the goddamn issue with you, but I'm not going to listen to it from him.
Well, that's true. That's true.
He's not the poster boy for this to take the standard bearer for, oh, don't say mean things about me. He's supposed to be this big tough guy, and he's threatening me. He said he's going to take care of that business, which I assume is me, whenever he sees me. And I believe he said before he blocked me, and I will see. Where are you going to see me? I don't know where you live, but I'm pretty sure I don't plan to come there. And are you going to show up as part of the gardening crew? Or are you going to join the Monroe brothers and come work on my creek stone? Are you going to start shopping at the goddamn local grocery store here? Where are we going to cross paths in our social circle, fat ass?
Don't you think you would see him when he tries to hop the fence and he falls on his face?
Yes! Because it's lower than the goddamn rope that he couldn't get over. And again, we're not going to meet each other because why would we? Because I have no interaction with you nor you me. You were doing what Butch Reed used to say in the locker room was selling wolf tickets. You're promoting a fight that ain't going to happen and talking about what you're going to do that you ain't going to do. I didn't say I was going to come find him and take care of his business, because I'm not, because I don't care about him enough to leave my house and leave the county. But I've stirred him up so bad that he had to, again, comment on this poor girl's post about being body shamed, that he's a goddamn supposed adult and not even related to this conversation, and he's got to jump in to be a victim and then threaten me that he's going to beat me up for doing it on Twitter. So everybody will think he's going to beat me up. When in actuality, he ain't going to beat me up. And you know what, Flopper? If you did come to the goddamn house and knock on the door and beat me up, then we'll just check your fucking bank account. Did you save your goddamn football money? Because you didn't make much in wrestling.
He didn't make that much in football either.
Well, then maybe he will be working on the goddamn leaves and the creekstone around here to pay off the judgment for what he's not going to do. And he's running his fucking yapper about it. I never said I was going to beat you up, Flopper, because I'm not. But I did say that you're a fat fucking whale manatee, because you are. And you're a joke. And you're pathetic. And nobody liked you. And they want you to go away. I'm talking about the fans and the other wrestlers. The ones that asked not to even be in the ring with you because you would fuck up whatever you were doing if they were beating you up. Good Lord.
Yeah, Jim won't beat you up. However, if a strange man hits you over the head with a club and says the words, John Pantozzi says hello.
Yeah.
It's not us.
That's a code. You know how badass Pantozzi was. Tell you what, he was nobody to be fucked with. That time they tried to knock over the U.S. Mint, he slapped him around single-handedly.
I mean, that was when we were first introduced to him, when he was the host of that Hidden Treasure show, whatever it is, where they knew where things were, and then they sent him there to lowball offer collectors so that this billion-dollar company could just add this stuff to their warehouse. And he was their conduit.
Remember, was he not the one that made little Nate Charles Robinson cry?
That's right.
Over the conflict of whether to give up that robe? Oh, God. But anyway, so point is, Flopper, if you keep your pie hole shut and go about your business, we're done, because I don't really care. But if you continue to run your ever-loving yap about people that are more famous and more equipped to answer back than you, then this can go on and on. Otherwise, we're done here. You're dismissed. And if I need you, I will send for you. Thank you very much.
All right, and that was the Top Dolla portion of the show. Or I don't even know if, what's his name now? I guess. Well, whatever he calls himself now.
AJ.
Who's going to book him?
No, you know what? They'll bring him into AEW as AJ Smiles and see if they can get away with it like Jack Pfeffer.
That's actually a good idea. I like that. Well, let's move on from Top Dolla or Flop Dolla, whatever the hell his name is.
Just my friend Flopper.
Jim, before we get to the review of whatever you watch from Raw, let's get a few questions in, because we haven't had any in a while, and I wanted to get a bunch of them.
Well, you may not have had any in a while, but...
All right.
But go ahead with questions.
All right, well, I'm opening up the questions from the Cult of Cornette Facebook group here. But actually, I guess I'll go to one quickly first from CornyDriveThru at gmail.com. I have here the PWI 2023 awards nominee list. Would you like to give your takes on these nominees for these awards?
No, but I'll humor you.
For Most Improved Wrestler, the nominees: Wes Lee, David Finlay, Sonata, Steve Macklin, Blake Christian, Alex Kane, Nolo Kitano, Ricky Starks, and EC3.
Okay, we've seen like one of those people, to be honest. But Nolo Cantandre sounds like a goddamn contender.
All right, that's your vote for Most Improved?
No. Wait a minute. Back up, and now that you've run through them, let's back up and talk about the people we've actually witnessed. Was there one or two? Starks, I don't know how you can say Starks is most improved when he was pretty good last year this time to begin with, wasn't he? What have they done in the booking that has improved him besides having an odd tag team title run with the guy that should be his bodyguard, but
most improved push.
Is it? What if this
From
time
where
last
it
year he
was?
was about to work with CM Punk?
That's true, actually. I forgot about that.
So let's back up with these other people. Was there another one that we... Help me.
No, that was EC3, but we haven't seen him since
We haven't seen
NXT.
him in a while.
There was no other name here that we've watched, I don't believe.
Then we can't really be honest about that.
All right, well, comeback of the year for 2023. Again, these are the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Award nominees. Comeback of the year, Cody Rhodes, Santino Marella, Raven.
What? I didn't know he came back.
I had no idea either. Chris Statlander, Alex Cole. Oh, excuse, Adam Cole. I don't know why
Alex Cole.
Adam, because the name Alex is on the line above it. Adam Cole for comeback of the year. Adam Cole, Brian Kendrick,
Adam,
Mercedes Moné, Trinity Fatu, and Selena De La Renta.
Jesus Christ, how many people get... That was all the comebacks for the whole year, wasn't it?
There were several people on that list that then got injured.
All right, well, first of all, the first name that you mentioned, who was first on the list?
Cody Rhodes.
Okay, I get the comeback from injury, right? Because we're talking about the torn pec that he came back from. Right. Is there any way that you can make a case that anybody else on that list had a comeback that was as meaningful and put them into as big a spot as the guys in now? Then Cody coming back from the pec injury. He's the goddamn hottest babyface, and LA Knight's bubbling around there, but he's the most popular babyface and biggest company in the world. So some of the other, give me the rest of the list now. Let's compare it all with Cody.
Cody Rhodes, Santino Marella.
What? What did he come back to do and where?
I think he's in Impact. Or the future TNA. The future TNA.
He's Canadian, so of course he is. Seriously. I mean, is anybody going to... It would take my personal feelings about the fucking goof out of it. Is anybody going to say that, oh, Santina's comeback was much more meaningful and prominent than Cody's? Keep going.
Raven.
I'm not trying to knock Scotty. I didn't know he came back, and I'm not sure where.
I don't know anything about that either. Chris Statlander.
Statlander did have a good comeback because of in very quick succession, 2 different knee injuries. But again, if we're talking about level of magnitude of impact on business, with all due respect, no.
Adam Cole. Bebe.
Boy, howdy. That would be the closest one to Cody yet in terms of the response in his particular company that he got.
But how does someone win comeback of the year if they immediately come back and get hurt?
They immediately go back?
Yeah.
That's where I was about to, that was why the comma was in that sentence I was about, but then he went right back again. And that's almost like oh my God, almost like the trip and fall through the wall type of thing, where having that as the result of your comeback kind of negates the goddamn greatness of whatever your comeback was.
Brian Kendrick, who I believe, I could be wrong, but is this a comeback from when he got fired for Holocaust denial tweets or something?
I didn't know he was back either, though.
Yeah, I don't know where he's back, but it's a weird
Now,
thing.
a lot of these people are disproving my theorem. How can I miss you if you won't go away? They're going away and we're not noticing.
Mercedes Moné.
Didn't she do the same thing?
She came and debuted with a new company, and then she broke her foot or her ankle or something, and she's out.
Yeah, and lost the title unplanned in the middle of the ring, and sayonara.
Trinity Fatu.
And Cody. Need I say more?
And Selena De La Renta.
Big fan of Selena's work when I worked with her there at MLW, but I don't think we can compare her to Cody Rhodes on a level of... I'm glad she's back in the business. But no, that's Cody Rhodes by... God damn, he lapped him, didn't he?
I think he has to win that. Jim, Inspirational Wrestler of the Year. The nominees: Cody Rhodes, Joe Hendry, Marcia Slamovich, Scott D'Amore, Alex Kane, and Willow Nightingale.
Okay, does it say why we're supposed to be inspired by Cody? I can get with the story of his whole story, either coming back from the injury or trying to win the title they took from my dad in the garden or whatever. Joe Hendry, I know from my tour over in the UK years ago. He's a fine young man. I don't know what he came back from or inspired people about. Same for Marcia Slamovich. Same for Alex Kane. Same for Willow. And D'Amore, are they talking about because he gave money to Don West charity? Yeah, that's inspirational. But what would he have done of an inspirational, facet in the wrestling business?
He inspired me to go to AI and ask what it would look like if Bruce Pritchard and Drew Carey had a baby.
Oh, God. Whoa, wait. Hold on here. Wait a minute.
Fuck you.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I'm not sure. From what I've heard, Marcia Slamovich, she's one of the Impact people also, right?
I don't know, actually.
We know Willow, but did they inspire people to change channels on a regular basis? I'm not sure.
Well, Cody may win that one as well. Most Popular Wrestler, the nominees: Cody Rhodes, Josh Alexander.
Oh, come on.
Alex Kane.
Oh, for fuck.
Tetsuya Naito.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And MJF.
Again, they're trying to sell magazines to the fans of all of the genres, or as some folks say, the genders of wrestling. But again, this is not even Josh Alexander, Alex Kane, Naito.
No, this should be LA Knight, Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, probably MJF. If you want another AEW person, maybe Moxley. But you can't have people that no one watches.
Yeah, I mean, it's not disrespectful to say that in the grand scheme of things, a minute portion of people see them versus these other names you just mentioned. So
imagine if in the PWI awards in 1980 or 81, whatever, they first started doing the awards.
Bulldog Bob Brown, top babyface.
No, top heel, the third candidate is Dale TNT Man or something. Just something like, what is this person doing there? No one watches them.
But this is what we're, I guess, forced to put up with in today's world, where everybody has to be nice.
Most Hated Wrestler. I got to double check this is a real list. David Finlay.
What?
Steve Macklin. Raven. Matt Cardona. Don Callis. And Aaron Stevens. No Roman Reigns.
Not only no WWE heel, is there an AEW heel besides Callis, and he's a manager. I like Aaron Stevens. He was with me at OVW for years. I don't think he's one of the 6 most hated heels in the wrestling business.
You need viewers to be the most hated or most popular of anything.
God damn, he's the most hated motherfucker in that fucking convent.
All right, well, doesn't sound like you have a pick there. Feud of the Year, Sami Callihan versus Design.
What is this? Who are these people?
I'm not sure.
I know Sami Callihan's the fucking little warthog-looking fucker, that still blames me because he got fired, but who is...
I don't know who
Design.
I don't know who this next one is either. Main Event, MANE, versus Brookers.
Brooker!
We've got an answer to where Raven is. Raven's Calling versus MLW. Did not hear a word about that from anyone. Wow.
I've just heard about the lawsuit. I don't know what they're doing in the ring.
Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. And finally, the Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's like Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier and Westville Grade School versus Cody and Brock on this list would be where we pay attention to most of this shit because we make money doing it and we don't know who these fucking people are. Because you have to either specifically want to watch those promotions at the exclusion of all others or spend your life in front of a television to keep up with all of this shit.
I really do have to double check if this is all correct, because now it's just getting a little ridiculous here. Indie Wrestler of the Year, well, not even this one. Indie Wrestler of the Year, Marsha Slamovich, Leo Rush, Billy Starks, or Mike Bailey. I don't have a dog in this fight.
I'd say flip a coin, but we'd need two more sides, so let's just move on.
Miss Leo Rush. You want to talk about my favorite wrestler who gets fired all the time? Leo Rush. Every time he's on there, he's like, wow, this guy can do a good promo. Wow, this guy takes good bumps. He can do stuff. Oh, he's gone. He's gone.
And he's gone. And he's gone.
Match of the year. From January 4th, Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. From January 4th, Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada. From May 17th, the Time Splitters versus Jordan Oliver and Mike Bailey.
What?
From April 8th, Bishamon, if that is how you pronounce that, versus Aussie Open. From May 20th, this can't be real. See, from May 28th, Master Wato versus Titan. And from July 14th, Mike Bailey versus Yoshihiko.
What letterhead is on what you're reading here? Is this a website? Is this their official website? Or is this something somebody's made up?
It's something that was forwarded to me allegedly from...
No, wait, it was forwarded to you or you wouldn't have it. So that's not the alleged part.
Yeah, I don't think this could be real. It says voting deadline mid-December, has an email address or a Twitter address, 1 vote per person, no ballot
Have we just been pranked on the air here after we've been talking about this thing for 15 minutes that it's not real?
I guess so.
It can't be real.
I mean, I'm looking at this Wrestler of the Year. Here are the candidates for Wrestler of the Year. MJF, Sonata, Alex Shelley, Blake Christian, Alex Kane, Matt Cardona, El Hijo del Vikingo, Rich Swann, and EC3.
No. This can't be.
I'm trying to get any kind of confirmation. Hold on, now I'm looking.
Somebody has made this. Are you going to air this?
I have to air it now. I have to air it, but now
we're stuck with this? You've led me down the primrose path.
I'm looking right now. I see I'm on their Twitter account.
Gullible son of a bitch.
PWI here.
Wow.
I'm seeing some info here about Combat Princess USA, but let me...
What? Combat Princess? What has happened to Pro Wrestling Illustrated? What are we goddamn looking at here?
All right, I'm going to email someone I know who works there and get confirmation if this is a real list or not.
We'll come back to this.
Yeah, this is Faction of the Year, United Empire, Bullet Club, Blackpool Combat Club, TMDK, Just 5 Guys.
Judgment Day?
Ravens calling, Design, and Judgment Day. How come Roman Reigns is not in a single one of these things, though? That's the biggest thing that makes me think this whole thing may be fake, but we will find out. All right, well, let's go from one sham to another. Jim, I understand you watched some Monday Night Raw.
Let me just make
sure. Don't rip that. That's valuable.
That was your paycheck for the week.
You have glue?
No, but
tape?
I'm sure that you can forge well enough that we can get by with it.
Ah, thank you. Well, as I said, we're going to talk about Raw. And I understand you watched Raw. You told me there were things you wanted to see. I watched all of Raw. You watched portions of Raw.
You watched all of Raw?
Well, when I say all of Raw, I watched it after it was over so I could fast forward through parts. And there were certain matches I may have fast forwarded through for the most part. But I saw all the speeches.
The speechifying. Well, no, this was a big week for it. And to be honest, I think it's 2 weeks now that we have foregone the Raw experience because it seems like that life is so short and you're spending most of it trying to watch that program. So we skipped a couple of weeks, but last week or this past Monday night, it was November 13th, whenever you're listening to this. But nevertheless, the program was very instrumental in the furthering of not only the War Games match at Survivor Series, but also in the historic and the Judgment Day. So we had to watch because, the happenings, not the matches now, the happenings are what's driving this gravy train that they're running right now. Do you remember the old gravy train dog food commercials?
I do not.
Where when I was a kid, they had the gravy train where the horse-driven chuck wagon with the red and white checkerboard would be, the dog would be sleeping on the floor in the kitchen, right? And suddenly you'd hear the crack of the whip and the horse's footsteps, and then you'd see the gravy train from Checkerboard Square. The horse and wagon would come through the kitchen floor, and the dog would jump up and chase it, and then the horse and wagon would go right through the cabinet of the kitchen, right through the cabinet door and into the kitchen cabinet where the dog couldn't get to it. And then its owner had to come and open the door and get the gravy train out. And you know why they called it gravy train, Brian?
Was it the gravy?
It was when you put the food in the dish and you poured hot water on it, it made the gravy for the little hounds. And this was state-of-the-art dog food back then. Gravy train. Loved those commercials. Because I was always thinking the dog should smarten up and get in front of the goddamn wagon before it got to the cabinet and went through the door.
We're talking about Raw, I believe.
Well, speaking about state-of-the-art dog food, so they did a VTR package of last week, and actually, I felt a twang of heartache that I didn't watch the main event last week because it was Seth Franklin Rollins against Sami Zayn and their old Ring of Honor cohorts, and they looked like they had a heck of a match. They were going all out. But Seth beat Sami, and then the Judgment Day attacked Sami, and Seth helped him, and then so did Jey Uso, and so did Cody Rhodes, and Adam Pearce came out and announced with bug eyes and a raised voice, War Games for Survivor Series. And it looked like a heck of a little match and angle there. I wish it had been on SmackDown, so it would have been on a program that hasn't bored us out of keeping up with it yet. But nevertheless. So then here comes Cody. And a big entrance, and he's over. And he mentioned that tonight he and Jey Uso are going to win the tag team title, and then he plugged the War Games is coming to Survivor Series and introduced his team. And he introduced Jey Uso. We got Jey Uso music entrance and Sami Zayn music entrance. And then Dancing Seth Rollins music entrance. And then long singing of ho, ho, ho from the fans. And by the time they actually started this interview, it was 12 minutes into the program. And Cody spoke for 30 seconds. And that was mainly to, I can count on Jay and I can count on Sammy, but can I count on you to Seth? And they were staring at each other. And then the Judgment Day music played and they made their entrance. And I thought, God damn it. We are 15 minutes into this program. There's barely been a word spoken, right? But finally we get into it. Because now JD Funko is now in the Judgment Day, but Rhea Ripley didn't come out with them for this. It was just all the guys.
Well, it wasn't official at this point. He came out with them, but he wasn't in the Judgment Day.
That's right. He came out with them, but then he's not official yet. But he came out with them. And he's going to be official later on. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Hope I didn't spoil anything for anybody. But Priest says, hey, the Judgment Day is family, and you're a bunch of random people thrown together. And so we're going to win War Games. And I wish they wouldn't let Finn speak because he's just so... It's so high-pitched and so whiny with the accent and everything. Priest sounds like James Earl Jones next to everybody else in his company. But this went kind of slow also. They were talking to each other for a little while. And they did the thing where they booed Dominic, but then the fans started chanting, fuck you, fuck you. And finally, Sammy jumped in and actually moved this along. He cut a fucking heck of a promo. He fired up the people. He laid out the goddamn babyface's fucking thought process and got him into it, right? Thankfully, somebody saved the fucking day. And then Cody says, well, where's Mommy, the leader of the... And Priest says, there is no leader of the Judgment Day. And then Cody does the thing where he finally goads Priest into saying that he's the leader of the Judgment Day. And then suddenly Seth jumped in and said, I'm ready for a fight. How about JD and Dominic against Seth and Sammy right here, right now? And Priest, since he's now claimed he's the leader, he accepted for it. And we were 20 minutes into the fucking program. I like what they do. I just wish they could do it quicker. Your thoughts?
I mean, it took a while, but the people there seemed happy and into it. They needed to do something to set up why all these people are on the same team. It was more just, here's my team, and then it kind of had to fall together throughout the rest of the show.
Well, no, they did it, to be fair, because then people are going to say this, so I want to save you some ass chewing on the internet. They set up a lot of it last week we didn't watch, so I wasn't concerned as much about that.
They set up Cody picking Seth last week?
Well, because they were all involved. He did fight on their behalf in that instance.
Yeah, I didn't watch last week either.
Well, that's why I'm telling you, don't bury yourself. You've already goddamn made us guilty of fucking either plagiarism or some kind of goddamn misrepresentation.
I have some news on that. Let's take a little break here, and I will cut this into the other segment. It turns out what was mailed to us, I believe, is actually just someone's ballot. Because I have here a copy in my hand of PWI's latest issue, and the ballot is in here. And they don't actually have, like, nominees. They have, like, top picks. But for instance...
Now, wait a minute. Now we're recording this to go back and...
we're going to go fix that other shit segment. For instance, Comeback Wrestler of the Year, the top candidates listed here, just top candidates. Trinity, Sari, Trish Stratus, Saraya, Adam Cole, Andrade, Kota Ibushi, Miro, Nikita, Roderick Strong, and Vanessa Craven.
Jesus Christ, that's as bad as the other list.
Most Improved Wrestler of the Year.
What's the goddamn difference? I like the other guys better.
Most Improved Wrestler of the Year. The other guy had Wesley, David Finlay, Sonata, Steve Macklin, Blake Christian. By the way, the other guy's Sean Connor is his name. Alex Kane.
Sean Connery?
Well, this one has Sonata, Julia Hart, Mariah May, Yoda Tsuji, Master Wado, L.A. Knight, Kenzie Page, Stephanie Vacour, Tria Hall, and Trick Williams.
Now, wait a minute. Are you saying this is the official Pro Wrestling Illustrated list of people to choose from?
This is in the... What is this? Does it have a date on it?
What are you talking about? Who is Master Waddle?
This is the January 2024 issue of PWI.
What has happened to these people? Are they all on some drugs?
Well, for instance, Inspirational Wrestler of the Year. By the way, Scott D'Amore is not on their list of nominees for the record.
Jesus Christ, neither is fucking Genghis Khan.
Mina Shirakawa.
What?
Cody Rhodes. Richard Holiday. Mark Briscoe. Alex Kane. Billy Starks. Zelina Vega. Robert Martyr. Whoever that is. Mickey James.
They're not going to make a martyr out of me. You know, Mark Briscoe on that list is legitimate and and should be instead of Cody. Literally, if we're talking inspirational, motivational, inspirational, perspirational, whatever the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, this guy's list sucks. Most hated, he has David Finlay, Steve Macklin, Raven, Matt Cardona, Don Callis, Aaron Stevens. Here's the nominees according to PWI, the top candidates. Dominic Mysterio, Christian Cage, Roman Reigns, Jack Perry, Sam Adonis, Saraya, MJF, CM Punk, Chris Jericho, Juice Robinson, Don Callis, Evil, Swerve Strickland, Chelsea Green, Darius Carter, Logan Paul, and finally, QT Marshall.
Oh, good Lord. Well, I mean, part of that is
with AEW right there.
Part of that is ridiculous, but part of that, they're baby faces. When was Punk ever portrayed as a heel on their television?
Well, he was getting boos even though he wasn't necessarily portrayed as a heel.
But not to the level of the fucking boos that normal heels get, because the cheers he was getting were over the top on the other side.
Well, again, we're talking about most hated.
Yes, most hated would be a full-fledged heel. And Saraya? Has anybody tried to stab Saraya? This is the official list. We're
official.
Fuck the update. We're sticking with the original one and acting like that's the real one. It made more sense.
All right, well, here are the nominees. A couple more of these. Tag Team of the Year, the nominees are the top candidates. FTR, Bishamon, Aussie Open.
But wait a minute. Who Bechamel? Who is Bechamel?
I don't know who they... Bishamon. Bishamon. I don't know who they are. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Better Than You, Baby. Motor City Machine Guns. MK Ultra. The Usos. The Rascals, Young Bucks, Rose Gold, Samoan SWAT Team, ABC.
What the ABC?
And Bussy. I think my pick for tag team here will be Bussy. I don't even know who they are. And it's on caps.
I obviously I would think that one would pick between the Usos, FTR, and maybe one other tag team that was mentioned there that people actually, saw this year.
Faction of the Year. Your nominees or your top candidates, The Bloodline, Blackpool Combat Club, Bomaye Fight Club, The Judgment Day, Jericho Appreciation Society, Cosmic Angels, Los Toxicas, Bullet Club Gold, The Calling, The Outcasts, United Empire, and finally Z-Brats.
Z-Brats? I think it's down to Z-Brats or the Bloodline. What do you think?
Maybe so. Let's do the final two here.
And also, and let's face it, out of that, list there, the WWE has both the top factions, Bloodline, Judgment Day.
Jim, for Woman of the Year, the nominees, Gloria Steinem, no. The nominees, Woman of the Year, the top candidates, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Marsha Slamovich, Julia, Jamie Hayter, Jade Cargill, Camille, Chris Statlander, Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida, Trinity, Deonna Purrazzo, Tam Nakano, Toni Storm, Tiffany Stratton, Miyu Yamashita, Venny, and Alice Inc.
Alice Inc? Alice Incorporated?
ALISS Inc.
Huh. I mean, let's face it, it's Rhea Ripley. It has to be on anybody's impartial, list, but I mean, they go so far into the weeds there that are any of these lower rung people going to get enough votes to have to just clutter their list up with that many names to please all these promotions?
I'm not sure. Well, finally, Jim, Wrestler of the Year. Who would you pick for 2023? The top candidates: Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Jon Moxley, Athena, Kenny Omega.
Wait, what?
Well, she's been tearing it up in Ring of Honor. Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Hijo del Vikingo, Bryan Danielson, Rhea Ripley, Josh Alexander, Jake Lee, Bianca Belair, Gunther, Titan, Mike Bailey, Marsha Slamovich, and Shigehiro Iri.
Oh, boy. Even if you don't want to go with the obvious that is Roman Reigns, right? Would you then not have to go with, because Roman, and let me say why it's obvious for maybe the people who might not know, because he's on top of the biggest company in the world, and all the shows he's on top of draw better than the ones he's not on. But then also, you have to be realistic. At this point, would that not be the LA Knight fucking award? If Cody was inspirational because he came back from his injury, he's the most popular babyface in the business. Is not the wrestler of the year, the guy who's now the second most popular babyface in the business, and this time last year, or maybe even more recently, was a goddamn joke manager of a modeling agency. What kind of turnaround? How has that ever happened before this quickly in the wrestling business? That you go from, you hate the gimmick you're doing, everybody else hates the gimmick you're doing, and you're not doing it very well, and they're about to fire you, to you're a goddamn superstar and you're the main event of a $50 million sold show in Saudi Arabia in 9 months.
That's most improved. I wouldn't say that's wrestler of the year.
I would, goddamn, give me that fucking wrestler of the year. I'll put him on my cards and make money with him.
That's your pick? Is that your pick, LA Knight?
But here's the thing. He didn't improve because he was always that good. He overcame bad booking and made them use him. I say that's wrestler of the year. Yeah.
So that's your pick for wrestler of the year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get back to Raw, let's talk about what a lot of people wish they were doing during Raw, taking a good night's sleep. Jim, we have landed in the future again.
Yeah, I expect to see Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing coming out from behind a rock wearing robes whenever you play that tone. We have time traveled because I think I predicted it earlier in the episode that we were going to have to take a break because I was having my floors cleaned. We're getting the new appliances, clean the kitchen floor. For a while they're going to be here. They clean my bathroom floor in my office and my shower in there. It'd be nice and sparkling. And I had told you, well, while they're up here cleaning this floor, it probably, we'll take a break for an hour and then they'll be downstairs. We won't know anything's going on. We'll continue the program. And I was expecting a guy to show up carrying a mop and a bucket with a brush and some rags and a couple of bottles of cleaning solution and go in there like Mama Cornette used to and mop the floor, right? I figure this won't take too long or be too loud. This fucking guy, and he was a great guy, by the way, old-time wrestling fan, not one of the new folks. He doesn't know anything about what's going on in wrestling today, but goddamn it, he knows Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant, and he was just over the moon to see me.
But you started with this fucking guy, and then you're like, oh, let me tell you some nice things. This fucking
guy, he's on the ball. That's the way you say it. That's the way you say this fucking guy, he's on the ball, right? He knows his shit. And as I said, he used to go down to the Louisville Gardens on Tuesday nights, and he pulls up in his truck, and he starts uncoiling these hoses and these tubes, and I'm, what? Oh, yeah, I'm completely connected to the truck with everything I do. I said, well, how are you going to go all the way? He had a suction hose and a water tube that he ran through the TV room, through the kitchen, upstairs, around the corner, up more stairs, through the vault, through the office, into the bathroom. He said, I could go all the way to your neighbor's house if I needed to. And then he brings out, it looked like one of those old-time floor buffers, but it was hooked up to a goddamn hose. And it was like a pressure washing floor buffer. And then he comes out with a tank that looks like the pest control people, right, when they're killing the cockroaches. And that's the preparatory treatment. And then he turns the truck on. And it sounded like a fucking 727 was landing in my driveway. And it's right outside the window of the office. And I called you back from standing behind it. I said, we can't record with this. And you're, what? And boy, I've never seen a cleaner floor. But he was here for a few hours. And significant elbow grease on the scrubbing and the polishing. But it was loud. It was louder than expected. So we had to call our previous recording session. And now we're back. And continuing. And it's your show.
That's right. And I think I said something about a good night's rest. And I think I had one in between the last recording session and this one on my Helix sleep mattress.
Well, you've done the whole spot for me then.
What's the promo code, Jim?
Well, I'll tell you what, but first I'm going to tell you what you get. You get 25% off and 2 free pillows. But now I'm going to tell you what you don't get when you get a Helix Sleep mattress: fiberglass. Remember, we were talking about this last week, Brian. They're fiberglass free. Other mattress companies use fiberglass as a flame retardant. No wonder when I was sleeping on those other mattresses, every time I rolled over, I'd cut myself. There's glass in those things. That can't be safe, especially for children, is it?
Glass, certainly not. I wouldn't think. I don't know anything about fiberglass mattresses. I know Helix
broken
Sleep.
Glass or fiberglass or anything like that. You don't want that, so you got to get a Helix.
I don't have to worry about that. I have my kids on Helix Sleep mattresses.
Yes, because they got mattresses for kids, too, and they don't have thumbtacks or Elmer's glue in them either.
Of course not.
And I'll tell you something else.
What? Yeah? Tell me something else. Anything else? Yes.
Anything else? Well, there's all kinds of things you wouldn't want your children to sleep on. And I can guarantee you that no Helix Sleep mattress comes with thumbtacks or Elmer's glue in it.
That is a guarantee.
That is. And also, there's the 100-night trial, where if you don't like this thing, after 100 nights, you've had it in your home, they'll come and they'll jerk the thing out from under you if you don't like it. And then I guess you're shit out of luck unless you got a couch, but they will take it back and give you your money back.
Well, that's not exactly the way it happens, but there is a guarantee. But there'll be no jerking. At least by the fine people from Helix Sleep.
What you do on your own mattress is... And here's another thing. They know, what are you laughing about? Because you know that it's different when you lay on a mattress in a mattress store. You don't get to fully relax on it. That's why they want you to have this thing in your own home for 100 nights and sleep on it right there. Of course, now, if you're renting, that doesn't apply. It's got to be your own home. But you'll have it in your own... What?
I'm kind of lost. I know there's elements of the copy in what you're saying, but you've gone to such a far out place.
Well, no, I'm renting my own home.
The attempts to reel us back make me think of a good night's sleep I would have on a Helix Sleep mattress.
Yes, as long as you own the home. As soon as you show them the deed to the home that you're in, they'll let you have this mattress for 100 nights and try it out.
Even if you're a renter, I would assume. I mean, I'm fairly confident in saying they would allow you to
own home, but
right. But I think it can't just be
if you're sleeping on somebody's couch too. If you're just crashing with a friend. Maybe you could have it taken to your friend's home and you could try it out there.
You could have it shipped anywhere that is a home.
Well, and sometimes the people in mental institutions or therapy places, they're not allowed to have their own mattress.
Well, perhaps the staff need a comfortable thing to sleep on when they're hiding from the patients.
Well, that's true. And there's over 10% of the people that are going through shock treatments are on Helix mattresses. Did you know that?
I did.
Apparently you didn't.
I did not know.
But folks, they got 20 unique mattresses in the Helix lineup, including the award-winning Luxe Collection, the newly released Helix Elite Collection, the one for the big and tall folks, or the portly and stout, or the gangly and lanky, or however you describe yourself. They've got something for everybody. And right now for the holidays, you're going to have family around. You're going to have headaches. You're going to have aggravation and frustration and heartaches by the numbers. So at least get a good night's sleep. Treat yourself to a mattress that's like sleeping on a cloud and totally free of fiberglass. And right now, you can get 25% off and 2 free pillows in honor of Black Friday. When you go to Helix Sleep, that's HELIX, sleep, you got to know how to spell that, .com, helixsleep.com/JCE, and use the code HelixPartner25. Boy, that's complicated. Let me say it again. The code at helixsleep.com/JCE is HelixPartner25, and that's going to allow you to get 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows. And no fiberglass.
That's right. Helix Sleep. You already gave the promo code, so I won't ask you to do it once again, but Helix Sleep, a fine mattress and no fiberglass.
HelixPartner25 is what that is.
The code is what the code is.
Yeah.
The code is HelixPartner25.
Are you speaking in code or tongues?
Well, here we are, Jim, in the future, once again.
No, we didn't go anywhere that time.
Helix sleep.
You're joyriding.
I am joyriding. Well, I want the joy to continue, but it must come to a stop. We were in the middle of a Raw review when we were attacked by the PWI Awards. Let's go back to the remainder of the Raw review.
Boy, yeah, we got off sideways, didn't we? So we're back to Raw on, what the fuck day was it? November 13th, a red letter day in anybody's catalog. And we just seen the opening 20-minute segment of long speechifying. And then we got to the first match, which was Seth and Sami Zayn against Dominic and JD Funko. And of course, we're talking about, through this whole program, the Babyfaces War with Judgment Day. Because we're going to get a big surprise here in a couple minutes. And of course, since this was a match, I zipped through it to see the next development in the angle. But at one point, I don't know whether was this a night off for everybody as far as mentally, was something going on? Because I saw a couple strange things. Dominic gave Seth 2 suplexes in a row, and then they stood up and he went for a third one, and Seth just picked him up and just dropped him flat of his back and turned around and just flat-footed cold tagged Sami Zayn to no pop whatsoever. Like, fuck, here, you do it. But anyway, finally they do the finish. Seth super kicks Dominic and gives him a buckle bomb, and there's Finn and Priest, and they just jerk Seth out to the floor, DQ, ding ding. Heat on Seth. Cody and Jay come out to help, and they have a big fight on the floor with the agents, the referee, and security, which was the best part of... Actually, it was the most exciting part of the show at that point, because that was the first match, and it was the most exciting part of that, and we were 40 minutes into this thing. But they had a big pull apart in the ring and on the floor, and then Adam Pearce, who I'm loving, is fucking just putting his foot down.
And Raw has done to him what it does to the rest of us.
Yes, it made him crazy.
That's right.
Driven him out of his fucking mind. He says, fuck it, all the seconds are barred from the arena for the tag team title match tonight. Nobody's going to be interfering in that one. And then Rhea comes out, and she's getting all over him, and we go to the break. And when we come back, because everybody knows the only thing that people are watching this for is more developments with the Judgment Day, Rhea is still in the ring arguing with Adam Pearce. And she's pissed about everybody being booted from the building. And Pearce is telling her off. And then Zoe Stark's music interrupts. And I'm, oh, Jesus. So, Brian, I don't know. I don't even know if you watched any of this at all. Rhea was in it. But, boy, she started talking, and she's still not comfortable with promos yet or whatever, because the crowd started whatting her. And it's just, it's like the average girl's promo. They just kind of drone the memorized shit. But when Rhea responded, they don't what her, because they listen to her. She's the best female promo in the business, and is probably top 10 of both male and female. Delivery, emotion, the voice, the fire when needed, the inflections.
Even when delivering bullshit that's been written, she delivers it well.
Yes. You know, ahead of the rest of the pack. So anyway, but they argued for a minute. Arguing may be too strong of a term. And then Rhea went to jump her, and she ducked, and Rhea just went over the top rope to the floor and walked out. So that, you know, here we go. In the back, Cody Rhodes asked for a moment with Seth Rollins, confidentially between them, right in front of the television camera. And Cody's pitch is he needs Seth for one night at War Games. You don't have to like me. We don't have to get along, just one time to, you know, get even with the bloodline. And Seth respects him even if he doesn't like him, so he very slowly and wordily agrees to that they're good for War Games. Nobody can just make a fucking point and just hit the nail on the head. And then we went through a bunch of other stuff. Well, Shaky and Otis had a match, and then Seth sees Drew McIntyre in the back. And Drew has wanted to give him something since last Saturday at Crown Jewel and offered Seth his hand. And Seth took it. And then Drew said he's still going to get a rematch. And Seth kind of patted him on the shoulder and said, "I know you will, big man," or something like that, kind of condescendingly. And off they go.
Give them credit. They've kind of made Drew interesting.
Well, yes. And that was a nice little MacGuffin, as Hitchcock used to say, that they had the little handshake there and everything. But that's, again, they shoehorned in a couple of these pesky matches. We had Piper and Tegan and Ciampa and Kaiser Wilhelm.
But I think that was an important segment. It used to, as a fan, sometimes drive me crazy, especially with WWF, even though it happened everywhere, but WWF especially, like Survivor Series 87. Randy Savage is on the same team with Ricky Steamboat, who he had just crushed the larynx of less than a year earlier. Different guys who had blood feuds on the same team all of a sudden with nothing said. I like the fact that at least they're addressing the fact that these two did have a big feud when Cody first came in, and he won. And I thought they did it. I thought this was a necessary segment, and it was good, even though, you hate the invisible camera, but otherwise it was good.
Well, and that's something that Vince used to. Oh, don't worry about it, pal. Either they won't remember, they won't think about it, they won't care, whatever. It was something, well, for example, when Jerry Lawler turned babyface in 77 after his record-setting run with Bill Dundee, they didn't team up for a little while. It was an awkward, transition. And then the same thing with Jimmy Valiant when he had that long program with Lawler, but he turned babyface. And then to get a picture of them, all three together, was bizarre. We sold the shit out of that because they'd never been in the same place, all three of them at the same time on the same side. But with weekly television and weekly territories, there was more time to flesh that out too. And whereas Vince just wanted to go to the next big show and didn't sometimes want to close those things up unless it was at the very top. But anyway, the next dramatic reading was Rhea in the back with the Judgment Day. And she's obviously giving instructions and, tasks for them to, focus on the tag team title match tonight. And then she referred to Priest as their fearless leader. But then she told him that he was in charge of War Games since he'd already been speaking about it and everything. And then they all told Priest, she told Priest on behalf of everybody, that they're going to let J.D. Funko into Judgment Day. He took another bullet for him, and he's done this and that. And so Priest takes it on himself to go find J.D. and tell him about it. And then they had another fucking match. Xia Li and Indy Hartwell. Who gives a shit?
I like Xia Li. I gave a shit.
Oh, come on.
I like Xia Li. I think she's good.
Did she win?
She won, and then she had a confrontation with Becky Lynch. They're going to have a big match next week.
Good for her. And then Miz wrestled Ivar the Viking.
Did they do forgive me because I don't remember. Did they do the Miz backstage segment before this or after this? Did you not see it, or was it after this?
I think I probably skipped through it because it was the Miz. Is he at the Judgment Day?
No, they had Gunther and the Miz confrontation backstage where Gunther was...
I remember that, yes.
Yeah, where Gunther was kind of, talking down to him, but I think they're doing a really good job of setting him up for a match with Gunther.
That's what scares the shit out of me.
He's been good. You don't even remember, you've said you've enjoyed him for things this year.
Yes,
this year.
But now he's going to be a babyface. That's going to be even worse.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Anyway, and also I'm scared to death they'll have him beat Gunther.
No way. They can't.
All right, so anyway, they did a War Games package and gave the rules of this thing. Imagine that. And they're using Ozzy's War Pigs again as the official theme of the event. And so they came out of that, and in the back, again, nothing good happens in the ring. Priest tells JD that he annoys him, but he helped him. He took one for the team, blah, blah, blah. So he got the Judgment Day jacket or vest or whatever that fucking thing is. And he's official. And at 10:25 Eastern Standard Time, the first babyface, Cody Rhodes, began his entrance for the main event tag team title match. And after the rest of the entrances and a break and the plugs and more entrances and the introductions, they only took 10 minutes to ring the bell on the main event this week. But finally, we get to see what's going to happen. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso for the tag team title against Priest and Finn Balor. And what did you think of this match, Brian? Well, go ahead. Before I tell you what I thought, what did you think?
I don't think very much of a lot of these matches on SmackDown or Raw just because of the way they're cut up and everything with the commercials, but it was an okay match. It was all right.
It's
all about the story. It's WWE's. It's all about the story. You'll watch the match to tolerate what's going to come next.
Well, yeah, and Cody does try to take him a bit more up and down, on a little ride than most people do with his matches. But again, this was kind of punch and kick match. Neither team does a lot of teamwork. They're not. Well, Priest and Finn should be a team. Cody and Jey are brand new, but. It's just all about out of nowhere doing a spot for the break. They had cut Jey off at the start, and then at one point, Cody and Priest just jumped in and started fighting in a four-way for no reason, and they went to the floor, and they went to the break. And then when they come back, they're still getting heat on Jey. But Jey just pushed Finn into the corner so Cody could tag in, and then they stopped him and got heat on him. And then he actually did hot tag Jey. And he made a comeback, and I don't know whose punches are getting more see-through now, Jey Uso or Damian Priest. Because Priest is doing this fancy little twist when he throws it and making a big motion and the slap, and you can tell it's awkward. It's not, I don't understand why it's so difficult for guys to throw punches these days. They can do everything else. But it's like they're scared of fucking potatoing somebody, but they'll go through a table off a fucking diving platform with them and think nothing of it. And then they stopped Jey again and threw him over the desk, and they went to the break. And then they came back, and he made an abrupt tag to Cody, but people popped because it was Cody. And he made a comeback, and then Jey tagged himself back in. And they did some false finishes. And again, they finally open up the last couple minutes where Jey dives on everybody. And suddenly he's on the floor. He looks around and he sees Drew McIntyre. And Drew just gives him the Claymore kick. Boom, rolls him in and walks off. And Finn covers him 1, 2, 3. And then Drew is staring ominously at the baby faces from the entranceway, and Rhea Ripley walks out, and they get the big handshake. So now we know where Drew's sympathies lay, but that was, 10 minutes of entrances and 20 minutes of just kind of, okay, they didn't do anything wrong, but it was just, to get there. That's what I saw.
Again, it's all about the big angles, and I think WWE's done a fairly good job of, with this establishing who the top baby faces are and the top heels are. In AEW, if there's like anything with a faction versus another faction, it's main event people, the rest of the show will just be other things happening. There wasn't that much on this show, and it really didn't seem that bothersome because the things that were there were all furthering the biggest storyline there is.
Yeah.
Leading into the War Games.
And that's what they continue to do, to draw billions of dollars by boring us to death most of the time, so that when the 5 people that we're really interested in do something, it stands out. But you mentioned there is a pecking order in the WWE, and you can tell what it is, like every other wrestling company and territory since the beginning of time, except in AEW. where one of these off-brand indie nitwits that gets signed because he's friends with somebody can be the opening match one week and the main event the next week, and they don't think there's anything wrong with that, which is why that they're in the shape they're in right now, because they don't think there's anything wrong with a lot of shit.
And they've now also established with Judgment Day a couple interesting things. One was Priest demanding, or not demanding, but in a commanding way saying he's the leader of Judgment Day earlier in the night.
Blurting it out.
And it got a reaction from not just the other members, but the audience obviously oohed at that.
Yeah.
And now this is the second time we've seen Rhea make a deal, right? Didn't her and Heyman have a deal on SmackDown at some point, or was it on Raw?
Yes, one of those things.
So Rhea, the deal maker, doing business on behalf, I guess, on behalf of Judgment Day, but who knows?
You know what she's going to say? Not only is mommy always on top, but you're going to have to deal with the dealer.
We'll see if she says that.
You know, I should have had D-Lo say that. You're going to have to deal with D-Lo. Maybe not.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It's AEW.
Did you have him say anything else?
He was quite the talker once he got started.
But there wasn't really a catchphrase or something, was there?
Well, he did later on, but I didn't tell him.
You had him, I'm saying.
No. We didn't do catchphrases in the wrestling business. We just did promos. Now you do catchphrases.
Well, that was Raw, and you caught it, indeed. The catchphrase that is Raw.
And I threw it back because it was undersized and not fully grown. I was afraid I'd get cited by the game warden.
Well, Jim, that was indeed Raw. And speaking of WWE and WWE stars, unfortunately you skipped the Xia Li-Becky Lynch confrontation earlier on Raw. But Becky Lynch had a second confrontation this past week, apparently with knowledge. She was on Celebrity Jeopardy, or as everyone's putting it on Twitter, Jeopardy, but it is different. It's Celebrity Jeopardy. And apparently she set a record, not just for Celebrity Jeopardy, but any Jeopardy. I'll let you discuss what you know about this, because I have not seen it. I've only read about it because there's no footage readily available as of this moment.
Well, that's the thing is, I didn't know until after the fact that she was going to be on the program, or I might have watched it or recorded it. I'm a big Jeopardy fan. Stace and I have had a long history of watching Jeopardy, except sometimes she gets mad at me because I like to blurt out the answers before they finish the question. But she set a record, Becky Lynch, for being the first contestant in the history of Jeopardy as a television program, I guess, to not answer one single question correctly over the course of the whole fucking show, I guess. And I also heard that she was in the hole when they went into Final Jeopardy, and normally the rules state that you can't compete in Final Jeopardy if you don't have, money on the board. But since it's Celebrity Jeopardy and they play for charity, they agreed to put her to zero so she could compete in that. I guess she didn't win that either, or didn't get anything in that. But Celebrity Jeopardy is different than regular Jeopardy. I've watched both numerous times. The Celebrity Jeopardy questions are easier. They don't want people to lose, or they don't want the scores to be low because the money's going to charity, and they don't want the celebrities to look bad. So she couldn't compete with whoever else the other celebrities were on the program, but that was the softball questions. That's not even the hard shit. I mean, so was it a cultural thing because she's from over across the pond, or what happened?
I don't know, but I've actually found, apparently there's some short videos of some of her appearance. I've not seen any of this, so I don't know what's happening. Let's check this out. Here is one of the categories, 6 degrees of actual bacon. Let's check this out.
6 degrees of actual bacon.
Can I have a 6 degree? Thank you.
That's Macaulay Culkin, I believe.
6 degrees of actual bacon for 200, please.
Trying to see if Becky talks at all.
Mozzarella is in caprese salad with tomato, and tomato is with bacon in this 3 initial sandwich. Rachel.
What is a BLT?
That's the sandwich.
Let's go back to bacon for fun.
Let me go over
Introduced
here.
in 2007. It's not your Wendy's order, I guess. Becky, you have a guess?
What is the Baconator?
That is correct. It is the Baconator.
It is the
Yes.
Baconator.
You didn't have the courage of your fast food convictions.
No, it didn't.
Well, let's go.
So wait, she got it right, but she just didn't buzz in. So I guess that's wrong.
What?
She just said the answer. He said, oh, that's right. The first thing I click on, she got it right.
But she didn't buzz.
No, she didn't buzz. It seems all the buzzing is being done by Rachel Dratch. What's her name? Rachel.
What are you having a
Rachel
stroke?
Dratch. That's her name.
Rachel Dratch is her name in show business, and she didn't change it.
She was on SNL.
Well, she's SOL right now, apparently.
Well, she's funny. If you're funny, you're allowed to, have a funny name. But hold on, here's Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch is known far and wide for her.
I don't know what that video is.
What the fuck are you? What is your deal today? I sound like Tracy Smothers. What's your deal, man?
Hold on, let me try this one. Here's another category.
Roger's butt. Finally, we're going to get to know Roger's butt.
Let's go with the butt one for 300.
The butt one. Vehicles can have butts too. This synonym for butt is also a term for the last car on a train. Mac.
What is caboose?
Yes.
More butt, please. 600.
Can never have too much butt. A synonym for butt, it's also an unclean animal, according to the King James Bible. Becky.
What is ass?
That is correct, yes.
Wait, hold on, that's two that she got right. What the fuck?
So where
I thought they said she can get anything right. They just said that's correct.
What is that? What is that? Yeah. I'm back, baby.
Let's go back to the butt.
For how much? How much
For
butt are you
900,
into?
sorry.
For 900. It's a synonym for butt, me hearties. It's also what a pirate likes to plunder. Rachel.
What is booty?
Yeah.
All right, well, this isn't really exciting.
All right, I was about to say, is this going to make air?
This is going to, well, we'll see. I mean, I think it is, but the air will be ending right now. It's time to suffocate this.
Why did they tell us that she didn't get in? She got one.
Was she on for the whole week or just one day?
I don't fucking know.
How did they do Celebrity Jeopardy?
Well, you know what? I don't know.
Is this from...
I know less about it than you do, but this is your show, so you're going to take all the blame.
All right, well, that was some of Becky Lynch on the exciting Jeopardy show. Turns out Jeopardy's not good for using for funny clips at all. But Jim, Becky Lynch, when she had to stop being the man for a while because Ric Flair was having a hissy fit or something, she reinvented herself. She became quite stylish, and then she went back to being the man. But during that stylish period, I would like to imagine that she went and found a place with some comfortable clothing, some stuff like the fine clothing you can find from Marine Layer.
Well, see, that's her problem. She didn't do that. She wasn't listening to our show so that we could tell her about the fine, comfortable clothing at Marine Layer. She was out there. She was uncomfortable. She was obviously wearing cardboard panties that were binding her up in the crotch, and she was obviously wearing substandard like asbestos undergarments on the top and sandpaper shirts and skirts and everything. You can't be comfortable when you're wearing material like that. You got to be soft. You got to be pliable. You got to be furry and fuzzy and just warm all over. And that way you're comfortable and you can answer these questions, Brian. That's the problem. She didn't go to our friends at Marine Layer to get her comfortable clothing. That's where she went wrong. And folks, if you go to our brand new friends at Marine Layer, the San Francisco-based brand of the most comfortable shirts and undershirts and overshirts and t-shirts and pants and puffer vests. You know those puffer vests, they make those things out of those puffer fish that are poisonous. And as a matter of fact, if they don't defang those things...
That's not true in any way.
Well, yeah, that's why if you go to Marine Layer, because they got marine in their name, they know about marine life, and they will defang the puffer before they make it into a vest, so you don't have to worry about anything.
All of their clothing is guaranteed to contain no fangs or no actual marine life at all. They're actually not economically, eco-friendly they're an eco-friendly company. They care about the environment. They recycle shirts. They do a lot of great things.
Yes, they do. They'll rip that shirt right off your back and recycle it. But I'll tell you what, It's economically friendly too, because I'm about to tell you how you can get 15% off with our exclusive link and all the stuff at Marine Layer, because that's where you can get all your holiday shopping done. Amazing gifts for guys and gals and girls, even like sweaters and tees and overshirts and beanies. They've got beanies, baby. I'm telling you, and this stuff is so soft. I told you about the shirts that I got. I got the t-shirt for Stace, and it's a wonderful sleeping shirt also. She just curls right up in it. I got that long sleeve stylish shirt. I can't call it a sweatshirt because it's too stylish for that. You could wear it anywhere. And right now they've got the Winter Archive collection. Super vintage ski inspired with tons of bright colors. And that's what we need more of in the world, is bright colors and happy, shiny people. And the best part of it is, if you get clothes from Marine Layer and for whatever reason you don't like it, they got free shipping and returns for an entire year with no questions asked. They're not going to interrogate you. They're going to take what you send them back and like it. So you don't have to worry about the wrong size or the wrong color or whatever. And they have an amazing array of colors. They've got fuchsia and magenta and mauve. But folks, right now,
and blue and black and gray and all the normal beige, all the normal colors as well.
Well, if you want to be boring like that. But anyway, great gifts can be hard to find for your friends or your family or even people you don't like. I know I'm going to send some people that I don't like some gifts of some turds and some coal in their stocking this year. But hey, find something ugly at marinelayer.com. and buy it for somebody you don't like if you want to make them look foolish.
There is nothing ugly on marinelayer.com. It's all beautiful clothing.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
That's right.
But right now, if you go to Marine Layer, that's MARINE, Layer, LAYER, marinelayer.com/JCE15, you're going to get 15% off your entire order, regardless of what you get, whether it be the sweaters or the tees or the overshirts or even the beanies, baby, or even that pufferfish vest. Whatever you want, 15% off marinelayer.com/JCE15, just in time for the holidays. Everybody in your social circle that needs to be clothed when they go out in public can use something from marinelayer.com.
That's exactly right. I love their clothing. I've been buying more and more of it. Marine Layer, the gym.
You know, as a matter of fact, studies have shown that only 5% of the people that the average person knows are nudists. So that means 95% of the people you know need clothing.
I don't know what you're talking about. And I haven't seen any study that shows that. Where did you see this study?
I read a lot.
What did you read where you saw this?
I read the study.
Where'd you see it?
I saw it when I was reading.
What were you reading? What was the periodical?
It was a book.
What was the name of the book? Did it have an author?
I think it was Studies.
What's its Dewey Decimal number?
Well, that would be BR549. No, actually, it was the autobiography of famed financier I.P. Freely, Golden Rivers.
All right, well, we're going to go from I.P. Freely to You Are High. Now let's talk a little AEW, Jim, because when we first started recording this yesterday, our original intention was for you to check out something that you missed, and I forgot to bring up to you last week because I was done with AEW by the time we were done with that review.
Yeah.
After your DVR stopped, there was a segment where MJF, still in the ring, witnessed on the screen the Devil's Associates. I'm not sure exactly what the name of these druids are.
The Devil!
But the Devil! The Devil and his crew attacking the Acclaim backstage, including Anthony Bowens being thrown through the window in a suspicious-looking office.
Well, and that's the thing, is that my DVR froze at 10 o'clock Eastern. That's when the show was supposed to be over with. They can't manage their time. And a lot of people say, well, you know, Cornette, you could reprogram your DVR. Why am I going to go through trouble when they're trying to give me their sales pitch on television? And why am I going to go through extra trouble? Also, I like to see every week that the WWE can do a live television show and AEW can't.
When WWE has an overrun, the overrun gets recorded for me. It's in the cable guide.
because it's scheduled ahead of time. It's not somebody calling from the truck at 9:58 going, oh, we ain't going to make it. But anyway, so this was on November 8th. It was last week. That's why we didn't discuss it, because as you said, I didn't see it. You forgot about it, but they recapped it on this past Wednesday's program as part of the presentation that they put out on national cable TV, November 15th. And I saw it there and I was fascinated. And I had to look over and over because there was so many things to see. And then I said, okay, regardless of what else they do on this television show tonight, nothing can be as bad, as phony, as low budget, as low rent, as ridiculous as that. And I was proven wrong. They managed to top themselves again. So we'll talk about the first one. They built a fake room out of cardboard in order to throw Anthony Bowens through a fake window. And I am not making this up. I'm not saying cardboard as hyperbole for, drywall with nothing behind it. I'm talking cardboard. They wanted the devil and his blue dress, associates to throw Anthony Bowens through a plate glass window into an office or a room or some type of situation in this building. But they couldn't replace any of the goddamn windows in any of the real rooms in the arena that they were in with the fake glass, so that didn't deter them. They built a room out of cardboard, and it was the roof, the ceiling of the room was being held up by the fucking little corbels that you put under shelves you put on the wall. You could see it. It was visible. And the biggest giveaway that it wasn't a real room is that they forgot to put a door in the motherfucker where the only way to get into this room was through the plate glass window that he was thrown through. But it didn't stop there, because when they did the shot, some random fucking crew guy was in the room, and when he left to try to get away from this, you could still see this on camera, on the air. I swear to God, I'm not lying. He realized there was no door for him to leave through, so he just went through the corner of the walls where they weren't taped together to escape the fucking... Oh my God, I can't even believe I'm saying this. And you could see when Bowens was laying there, they didn't even tape all of the cardboard sheets together all the way so you could see that the walls had seams in them.
I like the guy sneaking out in the back of the room. Because I went
Through
back,
the corner.
I rewatched it a few times, I have to admit. Because I was fascinated by the fake room with a big window. Overlooking what? Why would any room have a window like that there?
Well, why would any room not have a door that you could enter it by?
That's another...
And I mean, what in the cardboard? Are we fucking serious now? He's a billionaire. And do you think, I'm not saying the WWE has never built some fake sets, but goddamn, they had a fucking door and they were of some material that wouldn't be flopping in the breeze when it was on camera.
Do you think this was done just to mislead people into thinking that Jack Perry will be the devil character? Because I don't think it will be.
No, I think this was done because somebody thought that they probably Tony Khan, it'd be cool if we throw somebody through a window. And he's getting to the point. Now, remember I told the story from WCW, the late 90s, that Keith Mitchell told me. When he was directing and producing the program down there, he said fucking shitstain Russo called up one day on a Friday and said, we need a Partridge Family bus in Boston on Monday. And they had to fucking find one. Now Tony's, I want to throw somebody through a plate glass window. Well, where? Oh, just make one somewhere. But this wasn't. We didn't have cardboard walls on Ohio Valley Wrestling Television, on local TV. This was cable access level. Why would they just not say, we don't have a location to do this. We got to do something else. They did something that would not in any way stand up to the test of sight on camera. And they still showed it. What kind of fucking dog and pony show is this?
And they did this after the show had already gone off people's DVRs, as you've explained.
Yes, but then they aired it back next week. That's the thing. If they couldn't shoot it or clip it for a package to where it didn't look phony, and they still showed it anyway. It boggles my mind. People were laughing about this shit.
That's the thing with AEW. Every week there's at least one thing that everyone just laughs at. And it keeps happening. Never like, they're really getting their shit together and getting professional. Never. It's always just more of TNA WCW. It's that. And it seems like they're happy being there too.
I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing anything. I mean, even in TNA, when Shitstain had them do the VTR from Shark Boy's house, they made, and I remember I said they actually spent money on this when the company was obviously could have put it in different places and it would have been more well used. They made the interior of a fishbowl for his fucking bedroom. And it wasn't cardboard. Even TNA didn't do this. I mean, I don't know what, but nevertheless, the point is they started the program by teasing us with what we saw last week. And I thought there's no way that anything can possibly be more indie, more outlaw, more mud show. This is the muddiest and the shittiest of the outlaw mud show bullshit. No, by the end of the show, they had not just done a 10-second shot of a completely fake fucking room. They had done a 20-minute fake fucking match that made people realize that there's no reason to ever watch wrestling again.
Well, before we get there, Jim, let's explain exactly what's going on. We're going to review Dynamite as well as the Full Gear pay-per-view.
No, we're not. I've seen enough of Dynamite. We're about to talk about all that I'm going to fucking tolerate of the goddamn last Wednesday night's Dynamite.
Oh, so we're not going to review it on the Experience?
No, fuck that.
All right.
I immediately erased this shit as soon as I saw what I was asked to see, and we will pick up with the pay-per-view and see if they can redeem themselves, and I'm betting not.
Well, of course, this is one of the matches from AEW Dynamite this past week. One that I think you could recognize a lot of fans demanded. They really wanted to hear what you thought of it. Right away, as it was happening, we were getting tweets like, I can't wait to hear what Jim thinks of this shit.
That's while we were thinking that, again, that the fake room would be the capper, they decided to go one better, and so many people on Twitter and on the internet were offended as wrestling fans by this, that they made it a thing.
Well, I'll let you give your review of what was, and I'm sure you have the stipulations there, but let me just say in advance, maybe give you an idea what other people thought. Dave Meltzer in The Observer has given that match 4.25 stars.
Oh, good God.
Super match for what they are trying to do.
What were they trying to do?
And crowd loved it. And the bike stuff fit the concept.
The bike stuff fit
but a Bushi hitting people while riding the bike looked weak. So I guess that took 1/4 star off, maybe.
Yeah, that took 1/4 star off. This is the most embarrassing bullshit. So they did now apparently this is to promote a video game. The reason why they did this, because they were doing the commercial. It's like a Dragon Garden street fight. That is the name of it. Like a Dragon Garden street fight, right? So the video game is like a Dragon Garden. What the fuck does that even mean? But besides that, they're advertising a video game that has nothing to do with wrestling when they've got a video game that has to do with their wrestling and they can't sell them. They can't give them away. So now it's no count out, no disqualification, anything goes, lazy booking, like a Dragon Garden street fight.
Dragon Gaiden.
What is a Dragon Gaiden?
Well, there used to be a game, Ninja Gaiden, so I assume that it's associated with that old Sega game.
Okay, what was Garden? Was the Ninja Gaiden Garden?
Well, no, there's no Garden. It's just he's a Ninja Gaiden. I'm not exactly sure.
What is a fucking Gaiden?
I don't know. Hold on. Let's find out what a Gaiden is.
Damn it.
Gaiden. Gaiden is, in Japanese, it is a side story or tale. I did not expect that. So it's a ninja tale or a ninja side story, or like a dragon side story street fight.
Like a dragon story street fight. What the fuck? Did this come from Twinkle Toes? Because he's the Japanese nerd.
I think it came from Sega.
Well, I know that he likes to
play with his
Sega. So it was Jericho and Twinkle Toes and the former Big Show and Kota Ibushi in an 8-man tag against Take a Shit, Powerhouse Hobbs, Kyle Felcher, and Brian Cage, who got stuck in there some way. Apparently, either they were a guy short or somebody got hurt. And the ring was decorated with sushi menus. Like if you go in a goddamn restaurant. Pictures of the food. And Take a Shit comes down carrying a barbed wire wrapped baseball bat. Jericho comes in a black suit and tie with a baseball bat. And Twinkle Toes and his pal Ibushi came out together. Big Show came out in a suit. Apparently that has something to do with this video game. And then they jump-started the match on the entrance ramp. And in the first 1 minute of this 8-man tag, Big Show chokeslammed Kyle Felcher off the stage through a table to the floor. And then Felcher later on was fine. But Big Show, who's, by the way, is his right leg crooked now? Is it a hip problem, a knee problem? People pointed it out on his previous appearance also last week when he walked out.
Yeah, because of the last appearance, as soon as he came out there, I was watching the way he walked, and he's, as you would think for a guy that size who was doing physical stuff for as many years as he did, doesn't seem like he's having an easy time moving around.
Well, no, and that's why he never went to the ring. They did that choke slam spot, and then this little fucking grease stain, Felcher, was fine later on after the biggest athlete in the world chokeslammed him off the stage through a fucking table. But then apparently they got Show out to the back, and he and Hobbs did a thing where they fought in the parking lot, and you saw like 3 or 4 very brief shots of them struggling in the parking lot because they had to know Big Show couldn't get in the ring. He couldn't take a bump. He was about to take one, but he couldn't take a bump in the ring. He couldn't move around in the ring. They didn't want to expose that. But so they brought him in to do the choke slam spot and then risk his real fucking health to do a stupid spot with Hobbs, and Hobbs was never in the match either until they emasculated him at the end. I'll get there. In the meantime, Kota fucking Ibushi is the worst wrestler in the world. Is he not? No facials. He doesn't sell. He's slow. His strikes are weak. When he and Kenny have the thing where they run to the opposite corners and jump off and do backflips. And every time that they do that, this goof either gets hung and trips or can't hit it or takes forever to hit it. And again, he can't do that, but the whole match has to come to a halt so that they can stare at each other with their blank, vapid expressions expecting the fans to get excited for something that they ain't getting and don't know what the fuck's going on because two guys are just standing there. And then they run to do the backflips, and Coda takes 10 seconds longer than Twinkle Toes does. Why do they keep doing that? I don't, okay, if you did it in the past, fine. The Rock and Roll Express don't do the double drop kick anymore because they can't.
You know, Kota Ibushi in his prime was a talented guy, but a lot of the things you're saying here are things I always thought. He had bad facial expressions. Some of his stuff looked silly, even though he'll also take stupid bumps right on his neck, which he's been doing for a long time. But the other problem is, and it's been apparent since the first moment they brought him back, whatever it was, that War Games match they did, I think was the first time he was in. He's shot. He doesn't look physically like a wrestler. Well, I shouldn't say that, but he used to be in shape. He used to be on the gas, I think, but he was in shape. Now he looks completely out of shape, and he's doing everything slower. The comparison has been made, and it's probably slightly unfair because it's different, but kind of like Terry Gordy is the executioner.
Oh, no.
They brought this guy in there. They just signed him. Then they announced they signed him.
Yes. Well, because, again, Twinkle Toes has gotten every outlaw mud show Japanese female a job, and now he's working on the guys. He can't get top talent, but he can get his fucking buddies that are shot or never were to begin with. So,
yeah, you know what's the funny thing too is that tag team. It's the Big Show and 3 Observer Hall of Famers.
Oh, good Lord! I mean, the Big Show. Paul's a great guy, and he was a big star, no pun intended. And if he was physically capable, he'd still be the biggest star and probably the best worker in this goddamn fiasco. But so, and that's what at that point. They would get a shot of Big Show and Hobbs in the parking lot fighting on a car. And then they'd go back to the ring where they were hitting each other with sushi menus. And then that's how the match has come to be known, the bicycle match. Bicycle, bicycle, I'd love to ride my bicycle. We had bicycle races. Apropos of absolute, I don't know what a bicycle has to do with anything or any of these people. But this fucking little Japanese twit gets on a goddamn bicycle on the stage and tries to ride it down the entranceway, and you can tell coming halfway down, he can't ride a bicycle. He's literally, it's moving just enough where it won't fall over sideways. And he's swerving at that. And he's got a fake lead pipe in his hand. And as he rides past people, he sticks it out and they take a bump off of it. He's not hitting anybody. He's just touching them with it and they're flying. And then he rides all the way down and some other fucking loser clotheslines him off the fucking bicycle on his head. Oh, but and then they cut back to the parking lot and Hobbs is on a platform next to the car that they were fighting on, him and Big Show. And he gets Big Show up for a slam and turns him and drops him on the car hood. And then Show slides off, Yeah,
then he rolls off the car hood.
Yeah. But that was a risk for a guy that size with that health history. And yes, if you want to get Powerhouse Hobbs over, have him slam Andre. But not if you're in the finish of the match going to cut his balls off and shove them in his mouth and show him completely helpless and emasculated in front of the entire world after you have him slam the Giant. So anyway, he slams the Giant. Then they started hitting people with the bicycle. And they brainbustered Coda on it, but that may not be the proper term. He can't have a brain. And then Jericho and Take a Shit were fighting in the lobby of the building. Did you love the DDT that Take a Shit hit Jericho with on a padded leather couch?
That was something, wasn't it? I've never seen that before.
He sold it. He sold being DDT'd on a fucking couch. And then in the parking lot, the doctors were trying to figure out how to carry Big Show out of there because he was done. And then, of course, inside, Twinkle Toes had to set up a table. And at one point, there were two of the heels beating up Kenny in the ring and getting 2 counts on him, while the stupid idiot partner that he brought in was walking around on the floor, not even paying attention to the match. So did Kenny and Coda figure out, okay, you're completely shot physically and you were never worth a shit to begin with, from what I can tell, so Tony will give you $2 million a year, just show up?
I don't think he's getting that much, but he's getting a very nice deal. And he gets to hang out with Kenny. That's a big plus. But he's shot. He's not worth any of that right now. He hasn't shown it.
So then Kenny broke a fake bottle over Felcher's head. And as soon as he did that, within 2 seconds, the director cut away to Jericho's fight with whoever in the concourse. So they broke a bottle over a guy's head and cut away and never mentioned it. Then later on, when they broke another bottle, they said, oh, there's another one. You fucking morons. Clueless putzes. Fucking amateurs. Imbeciles. So then, Take a Shit climbed up on top of the Coca-Cola coolers and dove onto Jericho, but he shot him with a fire extinguisher. And Hobbs got in the ring finally and started to do a couple of things. Felcher got a pap smear. He was trying to get juice, but you can tell he's scared and inexperienced, so it was more like he popped a real aggravated zit. And then Brian Cage superplexed Twinkle Toes from inside the ring out over the top rope and through 2 tables flat to the floor. And that was a break spot. That was the goddamnedest thing. What a fucking bump. It was a hospitalization angle. If you did that on live TV with somebody that the fans cared about and stuck them in an ambulance and kept them off for 6 weeks, you'd draw money. But they did it for a break spot. And it was done by the one guy on that team that nobody's going to give a shit about, Brian Cage. And it was done to the other guy on the team that wasn't smart enough to goddamn realize that he had to get back up and do more shit. So he took that bump and risked his life for fucking nothing. And as they came back from the break, the guy who just got superplexed off the top rope through tables to the floor was hitting the guy that superplexed him with pieces of the table that he just went through. And then Felcher tombstone pile drove Coda off the apron of the ring through a cardboard sign and onto metal folding chairs.
That looked pretty nasty.
Of course it did, because you'd have to be a complete imbecile to be either one of those guys. You're either going to break your neck or you're going to destroy your fucking knees. Apparently, from the luck of fools, neither happened. Why would you do that? You fucking idiots. You know that these insipid individuals are why that I do not and haven't for some time had any interest in ever being involved in this fucking business again. That a business that I've made millions of dollars in and achieved a high level in it at various stages of the game, and I'm embarrassed at what they've done to it. And it's these stupid, insipid, vapid, amateurish, childish, moronic imbeciles and their ilk that have made it that way. And then, since Hobbs is too big of a talent to be allowed to get over, we got to cut him off at the knees and take his balls away at the same time. They got Hobbs in the ring and duct taped him to the top rope, spread out. One wrist on one side, one wrist on the other side. and he was completely immobile. And then they duct taped his mouth so he couldn't speak. And then they hit him with a chair, a cardboard sign, and finally broke another bottle over his head, the second bottle of the night. I remind, wait a minute, who did the first one get? The first one got broken over Felcher's head. The guy that looks like he's 12 years old and just escaped from a juvenile reform school got a bottle broken over his head earlier in the night, and he came back and tombstoned one of these other nitwits off the fucking ring. But Hobbs, who looks like a grown adult man that could kick your ass, he's taped till he's immobile. He's muted like a kidnap victim. And then they break the bottle over his head and he hangs there motionless for the rest of the fucking show. And not only that, it's not just bad when you immobilize the monster and when you just bash the monster over the head until he's unconscious. But then when you have the people, he's in the shot. They can't cut around it. People are seeing him laying there immobile, unconscious, helpless, useless. And the longer you see that, the more it's planted in your mind. Yeah, he's a big, useless piece of shit. Even when in Frankenstein, when the monster is strapped down to the table after they find him the first time, and they've given him the goddamn sedative, you know, the hand is still moving or the eye opens. There's still a reason to be scared. And then sooner or later he's going to break out. No, this guy's just fucked. Fuck him. Just hang him there while we do our other shit. And then Jericho and Twinkle Toes beat the shit out of Brian Cage. And then Twinkle Toes beat Cage with the one-winged fairy, while in the background, the only guy in this entire goddamn match that should be, well, besides Take a Shit, but he's rapidly being ruined, that should be being pushed was hanging there like his grandmother Hobbs's fucking dirty laundry on a line. And after this rotten, phony performance, being the worst wrestler involved in a goddamn match that is so embarrassing that people were laughing about it on fucking Twitter while it was going on, Tony Khan signs the guy. 2 weeks of him on TV is too much. We're going to have him for a year or two.
Or 3.
Or 3. Well, come on now. Brian, I think you're getting optimistic at this point. That's way past the next rights fee renewal and et cetera. And, you know.
Tony still has inheritance to blow, and that's all this is.
How much you think Shad's going to give him?
Well, remember, Shad's his partner in this. You got to, at some point, you have to wonder how much of it's a write-off. But I think whatever it is or isn't, AEW is not going away. Like TNA never went away. AEW is not going away. And Ibushi being signed, again, we're not talking about Ibushi if you're a fan of his in 2015 or something. He has shown nothing in AEW. We know he's not going to be able to do promos. The only things he seems to be able to do are anything with Kenny. That actually holds Kenny back.
Hey, I understand he can do all kinds of things with Kenny, but almost nobody else.
But that holds Kenny back, actually. You know, if you think about it, like Kenny versus MJF was a match that should have been built up. Kenny's the only thing that props the Bucks up, that anyone cares about the Bucks when he's there. Now he's going to be tied to Ibushi while he's there. Because who else is he going to feud with? Do you want to see Kota Ibushi against MJF? Maybe if you're like a super nerd, you want to see the match to see what it would be. I don't know what it would be now versus a few years ago. But you can't have a feud.
MJF would have to put his foot down about that, wouldn't he?
You can't have a feud with him. So they're signing a guy who was once really good in the ring, who's very close friends with an executive vice president who seems to get all of his friends signed to deals. And we've seen nothing except embarrassing stuff from him in that War Games match. Couldn't ride the bicycle, and then once he did, he couldn't hit anyone in a convincing way with a fake pipe.
I wonder if he can pat his head and rub his tummy at the same time.
But AEW, again, another week where it's just embarrassing, where nothing looks impressive, and where they say everything is great and moving on in a fantastic fashion. Since you're not going to watch the rest of Dynamite, you want to do the ratings?
Well, yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because honestly, I'm wondering whether somebody may have gotten some instructions wrong, because I think they wanted a padded cell, but they got a cardboard room. Because I think Tony has completely lost his mind at this point. Somebody needs to check on him. If he thinks this shit is good, even if Uncle Dave is telling him that to keep his goddamn subscriber base happy, somebody's got to be honest about doing an evaluation on Tony at this point, don't they?
Who's going to do it? The only person that could step in is his dad, because everyone else is just going to tell him what he wants to hear. And if you're going to be the person that doesn't tell him that, who's going to back you up? You know, there've been rumors about a sit down with various talents and him to talk about the problems. The show just keeps getting worse, and they're doubling down on the bad shit. Now they're starting to incorporate the Bucks back into it. The Bucks who aren't over. The Bucks who are making more money than any tag team. The Underbucks. They're making more money than any tag team in history, and they're not over. They don't even sell merch anymore. So, nothing but issues.
As far as sitting somebody down with him, I would have said maybe, I don't know, the head legal officer of the company. But I understand now that old Megan has been transferred away from a lot of AEW duties over the past few months, is concentrating on other things, hadn't been as close to the wrestlers and the wrestling as she once was. Somebody else is handling a lot of that.
Well, at least not as close to the wrestling. But yeah, the reports came out that she's been focusing on other areas of the Khan family business from the Jacksonville offices. And, you know, I think we could say we heard rumors a little while back, and we still don't know if they're true or not. But the rumor we heard from someone in the know was that she was suspended. But now we have to question whether she was suspended or just moved completely away from AEW, because for everyone who said Jim was making stuff up and Jim's going to get sued, when Jim alluded to the idea that she had relationships with wrestlers and with talent that was Laurinaitis-ian? How did you put it? Laurinaitis?
It was very Laurinaitis-ish.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Well, it turns out that may have been right.
Well, at least I ain't been served yet. So we'll see what happens there.
We'll see what happens there. Any other thoughts on Mega leaving AEW?
No, I was just saying, you know, somebody that could sit down with Tony that maybe he'd listen to. But, you know, if she's been transferred over to where she's handling some other field of endeavor entirely, because she obviously, you know, you don't often move people away from shit they've done a bang-up job at. It's just one thing I was thinking. But nevertheless, what were the ratings?
You also don't want executives that want to party with the wrestlers. That's not what you want. I don't care what wrestling company you are. You don't want executives that want to party with the wrestlers.
No, unless it's Eddie Murphy and Rick James, because they like to party all the time.
Well, you've made several references recently to that song. Is
I've
something
had that
going
song
on?
running through my head. I like to party all the time. Eddie Murphy couldn't sing. He couldn't carry a tune if it had handles on it.
Must be contagious.
But you put Rick James in the background of anything, it sounds funky. And that's what he did. He just did some background singing for his friend Eddie and got him a hit there. Drowned him out, as a matter of fact, also.
Well, Jim, let's talk about what's been happening with the ratings here. AEW Dynamite on TBS November 15th, 2023. The overall rating for the show was 823,000 viewers.
You know, this has got to be some kind of, I don't know if it's a record or a streak or whatever. Has there ever been any television program ever that did the same rating within 50,000 people plus or minus for goddamn like 5 months, 6 months at a time? It's the same people, isn't it? And how many of them are going to give up and jump ship before the fucking journey through hysteria is through?
Well, we shall find out. These numbers were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter one, the recap of last week's events, including the made-up room with the mystery window and no door, followed by Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta versus Hook and Orange Cassidy with picture-in-picture, 966,000 viewers.
Jesus Christ, again, they get handed 1 million people every week and they can't fucking keep them to save their life because it's this dreck with these children. And as you're reading these things, you're going to see why we're not watching the rest of this show. And Pocket's on first again, and the plumber. That's not foreboding well for the rest of the program. Go ahead.
No, and I wish I hadn't watched it if I knew you weren't going to watch it, but quarter
Well,
two.
I was going to watch it until I watched this the bicycle races.
Quarter two, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The continuation of Moxley and Yuta versus Hook and Cassidy, an ad break, and the Swerve Strickland Adam Page live promo, which may have been the one other thing on this episode I probably thought you should have watched, but that segment, 842,000 viewers.
Jesus Christ on a cracker, 124,000 people said, fuck it.
Pockets. And the Young Bucks, most of the time are the things that the next segment, either the continuation of segment one or just the next segment after them, there's a big drop. You lose people. And the women. Pockets, the Bucks, and the women.
Yeah, I thought you meant you lost the women, but they don't have any of those to begin with.
They lost those a long time ago.
So by the average, they can't really go too much further, can they? Well, go ahead.
Well, quarter three, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m., the Roderick Strong, Adam Cole backstage conversation on the monitor. Once again, they went to the monitor by just pressing a button on the phone as quickly as possible. Plus the beginning, or I guess the entirety, of Sky Blue versus Red Velvet with picture-in-picture, 813,000 viewers.
Well, there goes another 29,000.
Quarter four, 8:45 to 9 p.m., a Miro video, an ad break, Mariah May meeting Tony Storm backstage in both color and black and white. Samoa Joe versus Joe Cruz, and Tony Khan and Bryan Danielson backstage for Tony Khan announcing, was this where he made the announcement or is this just a recap of that? But the upcoming round robin G1 style tournament that's coming to AEW.
Oh, good Lord. They're gonna,
or Champions Carnival, depending on what you prefer.
That's going to confuse the fuck out of everybody that hasn't watched Japanese wrestling for 30 years straight.
It's going to be very interesting, especially who's going to be in these brackets, but we'll get there.
And that is very intricately booked going back to the days of Baba in the 80s, right? Is Tony up to something like that, or is he just going to, put matches together and it's not going to fucking come out right?
With rare exceptions, like when Hara had to leave All Japan due to his gambling issues and Kawada filled in with Tenryu and they got to the finals, other than something like that, or Jimmy Snuka and Bruiser Brody just walking off the train and not coming back to New Japan, usually I believe these were all planned out well in advance with the idea of whatever happens there furthering other things in the company going forward.
Oh, yeah, Tony will be all over this. Okay, go ahead. Quarter four.
That was quarter four. 808,000 viewers.
5 more. So they've stopped some of the momentum that they're dropping at, but they're still dropping. Now they're at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. Where do we go from here?
Quarter five, the big 9 o'clock hour. The Young Bucks.
Oh, boy.
Versus Commander and Penta El Zero Miedo.
Yeah, that's another reason why we ain't watching this shit.
With picture-in-picture and their family in the front row, 812,000 viewers. So a big bump for the 9 o'clock hour with the Bucks.
A big bump of plus 4,000 people for the 9 o'clock hour and these guys in their hometown.
Well, we now go to quarter...
I believe they got a little further to fall, don't they?
Quarter six, the big 9:15 hour. Young Bucks and Kenny Omega backstage, followed by the Guns versus Jacoby Wyatt and Peter Avalon, followed by a Wardlow video, and the first 3 minutes of the Dragon Gaiden street fight match, or whatever it was, 804,000 viewers.
Jesus. So the Bucks effect is in full effect. The Bucks show up on a screen. They lose viewers. They basically lost twice as many as they gained at the top of the hour, 8,000. So now we're at our official lowest point in the show. In an hour and a half, they've lost 162,000 viewers.
Well, we will now go to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m., the big 9:45 quarter. Kota Ibushi, Paul White, Chris Jericho, and Kenny Omega versus Brian Cage, Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, and Powerhouse Hobbs, the continuation of that match, with picture-in-picture twice, 783,000 viewers.
Main event, garbage match, people risking their fucking health, doing a bunch of phony-looking shit, loses them another 21,000 people with all their main event talent in this fucking thing, and their new signee.
And finally, quarter 8, and we do have an overrun here I'll get to. Quarter 8, the conclusion of the big 8-man tag Gaiden street fight, an ad break, and MJF's live promo and confrontation with Jay White, leading to the overrun of 1 minute of the Bullet Club Gold attacking and beating down MJF.
Oh, Jesus. So he gets laid out again this week.
Well, to end the show, but again, if you have a DVR, you may have missed it. 764,000 for quarter 8, and for the 1 minute overrun, 759,000.
Oh my God, the people now that want to watch the fucking program that follows AEW are tuning in 5 minutes late so they don't have to see any of it.
Turner time.
Good Lord. So they ended up, they lost that match as it was going on, and even with MJF afterwards, they lost another 19,000 people, and the overrun put them 207,000 below where they started the program, which is more than 20%.
I know you didn't watch, but I didn't see any mention or any actual physical bottles of Ric Flair's energy drink.
I didn't hear it mentioned during the bicycle races, and you would think that you could, drink some of those alien spore mushrooms and it would help you ride the bicycle better. Maybe that's what old Coda's problem was. He hadn't stocked up on any goddamn Ric Flair drip before he went out there. Or is that his drip or is his drink? Or
no, that's his bullshit weed brand that apparently gets bad
his drink
reviews.
is not a drip. His drip is his weed. And his drink is mushrooms.
Well, they announced they had
What does he sell with heroin in it?
Well, they announced they had a deal with Ric Flair, and then they announced they had a sponsorship deal with his energy drink, and then we have not seen or heard either on TV again since all the fans raised a stink about it. AEW
But I mean, if they signed the deal, they're going to have to do it unless they didn't sign the deal. And what'd you say, Brian? If you got a deal with no deal, that's not a deal.
A deal without a deal isn't a deal. That's right. Well, those were the Dynamite ratings. Another banner week for AEW. And Jim, you look at some of their merchandise statistics that go around, at least what's public, and you see who moves merch and who doesn't. And traditionally, people like CM Punk move a lot of merch. Danhausen at various points moved a lot of merch. But perhaps you were a wrestler that did not think AEW is doing a good enough job on merch or bringing enough stuff to the arenas. Maybe you want to create your own online store and not work with any of the companies that they got their hands all over the place getting money from everyone. Maybe you want to set up your own store, and you can do that with Shopify.
Maybe you want to cut down on the length of the transition and just take it from me, folks, that if you want to sell something, then the folks at Shopify are the people you need to speak to sell it, because you can't just hire, your wife to do, your merchandising just because she's from Cucamonga. Or you may not be able to, maybe able to trust Tony Khan or somebody like that to be a salesperson just because they happen to have billions of dollars. It's a special technique. You got to know how to sell stuff, and you got to have the platform behind you that can do it. And our friends at Shopify, I bet you, I don't want to make any boast that I can't back up, but I bet you that Shopify are so good at selling things, they could even sell tickets to AEW wrestling events. I don't know,
well,
maybe crazy there.
They're a great company, and we certainly were talking about them. We endorse them. A lot of people use them. A lot of people love them. I don't think they can do that, so I don't think we should say that.
Well, I don't know whether anybody can do that at this point or not, but Shopify can sell you everything else, folks. If you've got a company and you got something to sell, you need Shopify working for you, because they give you the platform to expand and help you sell at every stage of your business. They're a global commerce platform. That means they go all around the world. They're not just right here in Poughkeepsie. They're they're over there in Greater Slovakia, too. And whether you're auctioning autographed apparel or selling sleek skis, I love that alliteration in this copy. Shopify helps you sell everywhere. They got an all-in-one e-commerce platform. They've got an in-person POS system. And we've established from Brian telling me that that's not a system to determine whether a person is a piece of shit, but point of sale is what you're telling me, Brian.
That is indeed what I'm telling you and what Shopify's telling you.
Well, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify is great for it. They help you turn browsers into buyers. And if they're working on that too, they can, as a matter of fact, I used to know this girl. She was a magician. I was driving down the road with her in my car one day. She touched my leg. I turned into a motel. But they can help you turn browsers into buyers because their platform is like magic, up to 36% better compared to other leading commerce platforms. And when you get in between 35 and 40% better, well, fuck, that's just swell. And they're OWL-powered, so that you got OWL on your side. Oh, that's AI again, isn't it? Shouldn't they put a little dot over the I because it looks so much like OWL?
Well, they never use a lowercase I.
Well, that they should, a little dot over it. But nevertheless, with Shopify Magic, which is powered by AI, you can make brand new people up. It's all artificial intelligence powered, so you can just make people and have them work for you and do your bidding.
Well, not exactly, but kind of actually, yeah.
Well, there you go. So once again, Shopify powers 10% of all the e-commerce in the United States and much of it in Bolivia. And Shopify is a global force behind many of the brand names and the entrepreneurs that you see and deal with every day across 175 countries, because businesses that grow with Shopify. And Brian, do you know how much that you're going to have to pay to get this invaluable service to make yourself a multimillionaire, to retire to a South Pacific island with millions of strippers hanging around your neck?
$1,000.
$1 a month. $1 a month is the trial period at shopify.com/JCE. That's all lowercase, by the way, the JCE. Shopify.com/JCE in lowercase. $1 a month trial period for Shopify to come in and renovate your whole fucking way of doing business and get you on the right path and build you a platform that you can be proud of, that you can jump up and down on this platform. It won't break. It's sturdy. Shopify. Gonna make you money.
Well, Jim, as we are recording this morning, the Wrestling Observer Newsletter 2023 Hall of Fame results, the inductees, the list has been announced. Have you been following this?
No, I have not. I don't vote anymore, nor do I receive a ballot. Apparently, I'm soon not to receive the Observer at all in the mail. As we mentioned a week or two ago, he's ixnaying the print version, which he never took me off the freebie list for after he stabbed me in the back. But that's going away, so I'm kind of removed from what Uncle Dave's propaganda machine has been doing the last several weeks.
And I receive a ballot. The reason I receive a ballot is because years back, you actually told Dave that I knew my shit and I should get a ballot, and he agreed with you and gave me one. But I haven't voted for the last few years because I've had an issue with, beyond Dave's behavior with you, which I've witnessed from a different perspective than most people, the actual Hall of Fame voting body. I think it's gotten ridiculous. I know certain people who vote who don't know anything. I said a few years ago there was a wrestler who thought Brian Pillman should be in the Hall of Fame. Nothing against Brian Pillman. But when you're up against, Hall of Famers, it's hard to pick someone else.
He didn't get the chance.
Yeah, he was really good. And if he had never gotten hurt and a lot of other things would have been different. But I have an issue with the voting body.
Well, and also then it's become, at least the Hall of Fame with the Observer, when Dave's readership was somewhat normal, consisting of mostly fans of professional wrestling and not the trampoline cowboy audience that has taken over that thing over the last number of years. you're dealing with historical figures that, deserve to be in a Hall of Fame. And it was nice to see and hear and read the retrospectives and the reporting on those folks and, the spirited discussion over, oh, should it be Dick Murdoch is the tipping point? He was always on the edge there, whatever the case. But now it's just ridiculous. And now it's just, again, to fawn over and verbally fillet his friends and the Southern California clown car and everybody that's associated with them. And it doesn't have the same cachet to me that it used to. Even the one place you would think wouldn't be contaminated by modern wrestling is contaminated by modern wrestling because Dave and his sycophants insist on shoehorning people like that into this conversation where they don't belong.
Well, I think there's a bit of that. I think, again, Dave, not all of the readers vote. Dave gives ballots to who he thinks is worthy of a ballot, but I think too many have been given out. And in certain cases, when you see the breakdown, because he breaks it down who voted by, the class of reporter, historian, active wrestler, retired wrestler, you kind of get to see where everyone's mindset is. If that's based on, a few dozen people at a minimum, it's kind of troubling, some of these votes, I think. But let's talk about it because I'm going to start with the one who didn't get in that I think absolutely probably should have gotten in after this year. Reminder, Kenny Omega's in. Kota Ibushi is in.
That's what I'm talking about.
Roman Reigns is not.
Oh,
he received 174 votes, and to become a Hall of Famer, he would have needed 190. Is that right? Or 200 votes to get in?
Well, again, it's like, we've just described what we think by actual observation of Coda, and everybody knows what I think of Kenny. But even taking personal feelings aside, just observationally, how can anybody claim that either one of those guys that are already in their Hall of Fame are more accomplished or have contributed more or have performed at a higher level in a wrestling business than Roman fucking Reigns? It's just insane.
And on that topic, let's discuss this real quick before we get to who actually got in. Roman Reigns received 52.4% of the vote. You need more than 60% of the vote to get in. And if we look at it by class, let me scroll down a little bit here. Amongst the reporters...
Is that everybody that goes to the AEW scrums?
I'm not sure. Amongst the reporters, he's not even on the list.
What?
He's not amongst the top 30 people. Let me just make sure I'm right about this. Amongst reporters, he is not among... Oh, no, he is number 20 on the list.
Oh, there you go.
He was the 20...
What are they reporting on then? Have they not been reporting on the fact that he's the biggest fucking money-drawing star in wrestling right now?
Amongst historians, Roman Reigns... Again, I'm not seeing him. Let me just make sure I'm not completely losing my mind. Oh, no, he's number 8. Excuse me. Number 8 on the list of historians, Roman Reigns.
So 20 with reporters, number 8 with historians. Where is he at with the wrestlers?
Active professionals, he is number 7 on the list. And amongst retired professionals, he's number 4.
Amazing how that works out. Because what you have here is what do they call that? An inverted pyramid or whatever? The retired wrestlers are the ones that know the most of any of these groups about wrestling. They place him the highest. The active wrestlers would probably be the ones that know maybe the second most. They place him second. The historians, they're smart to who everybody is, but they've never actually been in the business. So they've got him at 8. And the reporters that are supposed to be the experts that talk about this shit, they're the ones that have got him down at number 20. So,
well, here's another interesting one. Number 1 on the list of retired professionals, and he did not get into the Hall of Fame this year, the Observer Hall of Fame. Number 1 on the list of retired professionals, Randy Orton.
Yeah. And okay, Randy Orton's not in the Hall of Fame, but Kota Ibushi is. See what I'm talking about? He had some credibility with this because the people that went in were all historical figures, even if you could debate whether, again, Lord Al Hayes was better than Dick Murdoch or whatever. But over the last, 10 years or maybe even less, it's gone insane with this know-nothing audience that he has cultivated of readers that have taken over his publication. And he is, instead of trying to teach them something, he's rolled over and scratched their belly for them. And that's why you get people that think that Randy Orton and Roman Reigns shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but Kota Ibushi and fucking Twinkle Toes McFingerbang should come right in.
Randy Orton's number 1 amongst retired wrestlers. I do not see him on the list of active historians or reporters. Well, let's find out who got in this year, Jim, and I apologize for any noise behind me. I don't know what's happening outside.
Oh, boy. I've got the handle on that this week. I had all the noise.
I just took off my headphones to see if it was over here or over there. It's over here now. But Jim, with 63.2% of the vote, getting in this year, the first year that tag teams are now a separate category, Rocca and Perez.
Okay, well, finally, Rocca and Perez, again, in any wrestling Hall of Fame, if you're going to have a tag team, it's got to be them, right? Because they weren't the best in the ring. They weren't as good as the Graham brothers. They weren't as good as the Fargos, but they drew more money. It was context. It was presentation. It was time and place and push and everything. And Perez basically gets in on virtue of being the guy picked to be Rocca's partner when Rocca was cooling off because he wasn't a very good worker. And his ethnic appeal and the drop kicks and the cartwheels only went so far. So they juiced him up because he'd been their biggest drawing card in the Northeast in the Garden. They juiced him up with a younger, smaller partner that could sell and get the shit kicked out of him and give Rocca the tag. And they again played to the ethnic audience that they had at the time because Rocca appealed to the Italians and the Hispanics because he was from Argentina. And Perez, he was Puerto Rican, so the Hispanics loved him, but because he was partners with Rocca, the Italians loved him too. And they got, 2 or 3 years out of that, whereas for at least 2 of them, Rocca and Perez, the only tag team that were ever really the top box office attraction in the business. Even the Road Warriors never did that.
You know, Bob Barnett grew up in Brooklyn, and I remember him telling me he remembers as a kid seeing, like in the newspaper, there would just be pictures of Rocca walking around town in the newspaper.
Yeah. And so that, again, if you're going to put any tag team in wrestling history in Hall of Fame, Rocca and Perez should be the first ones because they, at least for baby faces, because they kind of set the standard.
And I guess you could say even if you're looking at wrestling before 1970, just to pick a year, they would be the only clear-cut right away. Well, I shouldn't say only, but they would be the first. Like, if you're looking at, like, who's the first class of a Hall of Fame of tag team wrestling, you would have to think they'd be near the top.
Yeah. And, you know, again, this is, there are tag teams. What did you just say? This is the first year teams have been voted on? There are teams in.
Well, I guess the way it works now is you're able to, for people who are on more than one team.
If you have been in before, like Rocca's in already.
Rocca's in as a singles wrestler. Now he's in as part of a tag team.
You can be in as a tag team. I understand now. Okay.
And there'll be another example of that shortly. But number 2 on the list this year, with 63% in their first year on the ballot, the team of the Beauty Pair.
All righty then. There you go. I mean, that's
certainly Hall of Famers. If you're looking at Japanese women's wrestling, they probably should have been in a long time ago.
Yeah, I'll go for it.
I mean, they were like, you know, the pop idols.
I can't remember what their fucking names were.
All right. Jackie
What
Sato?
were their names? Jackie Sato and what? What was the other one? You're the Japanese expert.
I'm not a big expert in Japanese women's wrestling before
There you go.
Chigasa Nagayo, to be honest with you.
All right. Okay.
All right, well, let's get to this list again. With 62.9% of the vote, up from 57% last year, finally getting into the Hall of Fame, someone traditionally I did vote for, Sergeant Slaughter.
Yes, and I have in the past also. You can't avoid the fact that he was not only a top heel for quite some time under a couple of different names, but as Sergeant Slaughter, when they turned him babyface finally, he was the hottest guy in the business for a period of time and one of the top babyfaces. He had longevity. He was a great promo. He was an incredible worker. And he transcended the business with the G.I. Joe stuff, and he was on television. He was omnipresent in the 80s with that. So I see no problem with that whatsoever.
Next on the list, Jim, with 61.3% of the vote, up from 53% last year. Was last year the first year allowed? I don't know. Well, now people are getting in, I guess. Jack and Jerry Briscoe.
Good for them.
I was going to say, Jack Briscoe is obviously already in, but it says last year they got 53%, so I guess they were voted on last year. Rock and Perez couldn't get in last year. Glad they finally got in.
Well, it's an exclusive club. Coda wouldn't move over. Jack and Jerry Briscoe, one of the great tag teams of all time. And whenever you have... Go ahead.
Do you think people don't look at them enough as a great tag team just because of how successful Jack Briscoe was in the early 70s as the NWA champion?
Well, that's what I was about to say. Whenever you have a guy that, just by virtue of the success he had and the status that he got to, overshadows even a talented partner, whether it's his brother or just anybody, sometimes you have that situation. Jack Briscoe was such a dominant, world champion at the gate for 4 years, and the name was everywhere in the NWA territories. Jerry was a good worker and a good amateur wrestler and a good all-around talent, but he's in the shadow of, one of the era's greats. So naturally, they looked at him as the younger brother, the little brother, whatever. But when the Briscoes were together, especially when they were a heel team, I mean, when it was Briscoes and Funks in Florida, the Briscoes were the baby faces, the Funks were the heels. But when the Briscoes switched heel in the Carolinas, it was a different kind of heel team. And it worked so well because everybody knew they were such great amateurs that they would be heels by out wrestling the baby faces, but doing it in a prickish way.
Well, the promos. In those promos, it was Jerry who stole the show, and Jack would just, I don't even know how to explain it, just stand in the back, not say much, but smirk, because he's Jack Briscoe.
Yeah.
He could back up everything his brother's saying. It was great.
Well, and that's the thing also is that for those of us who were fortunate enough to meet both at various points, Jerry was kind of the over the top, well, not over the top, but the outgoing personality and the funny guy and the blah, blah, blah. And that worked there. So yes, they definitely, any wrestling Hall of Fame that doesn't have both the Briscoes in it wouldn't be very valid, would it?
One of the most underrated 2-year runs ever is 83, 84 into early 85, right before he quit. Jack and Jerry Briscoe turn heel in the Carolinas, and it's them against Steamboat and Youngblood. Yeah. And then they go to the WWF, and they're baby faces, and they're like, smiling, clapping, I don't even know, fists in the air, back and forth, baby face. And they have matches with Murdoch and Adonis that are amazing. And they would have gotten the World Tag Team titles if Jack hadn't quit. Jerry told me once the plan was for Jack and Jerry to get the tag titles and then feud as heels, turn heel on Wyndham and Rotunda.
Oh.
So imagine if we had gotten those matches in 85 instead of Wyndham and Rotunda against the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov.
Oh, good Lord. Because Rotunda was a heck of an amateur, and Wyndham was still in the era where he was one of the best, if not the best guys in the ring in the business. And that would have been incredible. But that's still, I'm sorry, but Jack Briscoe's retirement is still my favorite of all time. to just be there in the snow in that Newark airport parking lot and tell his brother, you know what? I'm going back in that airport, and the next flight headed to Florida, I'm going to be on it. And he did, and he was, and he never came back. I love that.
How was Vince told?
I don't know. That's the one question I never thought to fucking ask, is who told Vince and what did he say?
Well, Jim, what do you say? The next person on this list with 60.9% of the ballot, or at least the ballot from his region, and 38% last year. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, Tomohiro Ishii.
Oh, all right.
A mainstay in New Japan Pro Wrestling, hard-hitting matches.
What is his region? What is his region? Idaho? Because he's a baked potato with arms and legs.
His region is Japan, where you needed 140 votes to get in, and he received 143.
Apparently all based on what he's done in the past.
Well, speaking of the past, another figure that, based on the past, certainly would probably deserve to get in. We'll see what you say, but making it in with 60.6% of the ballot. First year on the ballot, Blue Panther.
Okay. What do you think? Know anything about him?
Deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Yes, he does.
Okay, very good. I won't argue with you.
Yes, he does. For a lot of years, I'll say, even though you don't like Lucha Libre, and I'm not a big fan of the current stuff, there were a lot of historical figures that were, it was like the list was backlogged. There were too many of them. And now they're all finally starting to get in later than a lot of them probably should have. But finally, Jim.
Well, and hold on. You made an overgeneralization there. You said, I don't like Lucha Libre. I liked some Lucha Libre back in the day in its native habitat. But it's like everything else. It's gotten so fucking silly and ridiculous and dangerous and phony looking that, now not so much.
Well, not so much phony looking the next person on the list, making it in with 60% of the vote exactly, up from 51% last year, George Kidd.
Okay, George Kidd is someone, he was a technical wrestler par excellence across the pond in Europe.
Scottish, I believe.
Scottish. That many of his contemporaries and many of the wrestlers, and everybody says was the greatest wrestler they ever saw at that time in that place, etc. I've not seen him, so I'm not going to argue with it. At least he's not from Cucamonga.
Well, that is this year's Hall of Fame class, Jim. Once again, Roca and Perez, the Beauty Pair, or just Beauty Pair as it says here, Sergeant Slaughter, Jack and Jerry Briscoe, Tomohiro Ishii, that was for you, Blue Panther, and George Kidd. Let me give you some of the names that did not make it in. Oh,
I was going to say, apparently a lot of bigger names did not make the cut here, and especially in the non-wrestler. There's always a non-wrestler list, and I don't see any non-wrestlers here.
Well, let's right now go to the other names based on votes. Almost making it in with 56.8% of the vote, Los Hermanos Dinamita. The Dynamite brothers out of Mexico, Cien Caras and Universal Dos Mil, and the other Dos Mil.
Yes, all of those doses. They were heavily dosed.
Well, they didn't get in. Followed by, at 55.4% of the vote, up from 50% last year, Paul Orndorff. Now, do you see... No, but this is an interesting question. Do you see Paul Orndorff as Hall of Famer or Dick Murdoch level? You could see the debate.
No, well... If there was a set amount of people that were allowed into the Hall of Fame and then you called it complete, Paul might not make the cut when we're talking about everybody from Jim Londos to The Rock. But you're telling me that anybody believes that Tomohiro Ishii should be in a Hall of Fame in wrestling before Paul Orndorff. Paul Orndorff, one of the great workers of all time. Paul Orndorff, incredible personality and promo. Paul Orndorff, Hulk Hogan's biggest drawing arena house show opponent. I could go on with Paul Orndorff.
Well, I think if Paul Orndorff had wrestled in Japan and he was only having to get the Japanese voters because it's a smaller body of voting for that specific region that you need to get voted in, he probably would be voted in. but he's being voted in for a different category.
Yeah.
He may have drawn more money. Ishii has more stars.
The only stars that Ishii has are the ones that he sees every time somebody hits him over the head.
Well, Jim, let's see what you think of the next one. At 55.1% of the ballot, or with that much, first year on the ballot, Young Bucks.
They couldn't even get in when the fucking people that are voting are Uncle Dave's hand-chosen fucking friends and family plan that would usher them in, and they still don't. They can't win a popularity contest with their immediate family.
Well, surprisingly, they did better than a lot of other people on this list. Following them, with 52.7% of the vote, Bobby Davis.
Oh, good Lord.
Followed by, with 52.4% of the vote, Roman Reigns.
Okay, so wait a minute. So Dave has now cultivated a readership that thinks that the Young Bucks should go into a wrestling Hall of Fame before the first most famous, not the first, but the most famous of the pioneer managers and the biggest box office traction in the business.
Well, let's see how they did by vote, by category. The Young Bucks were number 3 on the list of reporters, following Tomohiro Ishii and Sergeant Slaughter.
And as we've established, the reporters are the group that knows the least about the business.
Amongst historians, they are number 15 on the list. Amongst active professionals, they are number 13 on the list. And amongst retired professionals, they are not on the list.
They're not on the list. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, back to
That's all I got to say.
Back to who did not get in. We go international next. Jackie Pallo, followed by Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith as a tag team.
Oh, boy.
Followed by Johnny Rougeau. Followed by Jose Torres. Followed by Big Daddy, who's always a controversial name on the list. What are your thoughts on Big Daddy?
Well, seriously, no. I know that there are a few people, especially from his native country, that have dedicated themselves, but, well, let me go back and say of all those names you just mentioned, Dynamite and Davey, I can see that. Everybody else, maybe they're below that Murdoch threshold. Big Daddy I'm sorry, but everybody that I've ever spoken to that was actually, including, Adrian Street didn't like him much.
Adrian hated him, and he made sure everyone knew it.
Yes.
That's the problem.
But you can look at the evidence. Yes, it was like an outlaw Hulk Hogan. At least Hogan had the body, and Hogan could talk, and Hogan looked the part of a superhero that he was placed in. This fat fucking gap-toothed, overweight, gray-haired senior citizen with the ridiculous low-rent outfit and the fact that he could do absolutely nothing whatsoever in a ring, and the fact that his brother was the promoter is the only reason he was in that spot, and he killed the fucking business in an entire country because of the mania surrounding him, had everybody take a look at it and realize that this stuff is the shits. And he was the antithesis of everything that British wrestling was founded on, which was technique and action, excitement, athleticism, whatever. No, just demonstrably, when you look at anything he ever did, it was fucking embarrassing and the complete shits. No, he should not be in a Hall of Fame. Even the Ultimate Warrior had a good body.
Well, I mean, again, bodies became a thing in America first amongst...
But Big Daddy was not just he might be a little out of shape. Look at the state of the fat fuck.
He was a big fat fuck, I give you that.
In his 50s at least, right? And looked 10 years older.
But the question is, did it work so you can't deny it? Is there is there an argument someone's made that if, before the business went down, if Big Daddy was taken out of that top role, Wrestler X was put in that role, business would have done better?
No. But the problem is an opposite problem in that when you put a guy like that in that spot and get him hot for a period of time to where you get all the eyes on you. Then they realize, holy shit, we don't ever want to see anybody do this ever again. That guy and anybody else, because he was so bad. So you've done more damage by getting people to fucking buy a ticket to see him. Because they won't do it again.
Well, again, we've discussed a very controversial issue here. I'm sure we'll hear some feedback from a lot of people. We'll discuss it on future shows, Big Daddy. But a few more people here, Jim, on the list who did not get in order. We are now at 44.4%. Johnny Saint, followed by Bobby Bruns, followed by CM Punk, followed by Jim Johnston, the composer.
Oh, boy. Wait a minute. Jim Johnston got closer than any of the non-wrestling people to being in the Hall. I think Roy Welch's name was on the ballot.
I believe so.
I remember a couple of other people, but Jim Johnston, I never had a crossword with Jim Johnston. But how do you balance a guy who wrote wrestlers' theme songs for a few years versus a guy who fucking invented the goddamn wrestling business in a large part of the country and was a fucking power and force in it for 40 fucking years?
What's that, Vince? You have a mastodon? How does that sound? No, I like his stuff, but he's not I mean, come on, give me a break. Following him on the list, by the way, Ted Turner, followed by Mike Tenay, followed by Shingo Takagi, followed by Junkyard Dog.
Oh my God. Wait. JYD is not in the Hall of Fame.
He's still not in. This is something, again, another person I voted for because I believe that if you look at just a 5-year period from 1979 to 1984, or if you go past that to 85, or even 86 because of his popularity, it's undeniable. He was also the biggest star in the history of Louisiana and Mid-South Wrestling. But a lot of people think that he's just some big, fat, overweight guy who had bad matches with Ric Flair, is what they think of.
Because they didn't see the real dog. They saw the dog that was fat and on various substances and able to coast because nobody gave a shit in the WWF about whether you had a good match or not at that point. But Jesus H. Christ, again, we're talking about Tomohiro Ishii and the beauty pair being in the Wrestling Hall of the Junkyard fucking Dog. 30,000 people in the Superdome. People literally rioting in the streets if he got fucking beat. Fuck it.
Well, following him on the list, he had 39.7% of the vote. Following him, Larry Matisick, then Kevin and David and Kerry Von Erich as a trios team, followed by Mark and Jay Briscoe, followed by Stanley Weston. This is a fascinating list.
Hold on ahead. Yeah, it is a list all over the place. You know that nobody thought more of Mark and Jay Briscoe than I do, or did.
You were their biggest booster, I would say.
They should have been a Hall of Fame tag team. And if they'd have gotten the opportunity to be seen by more people and booked properly instead of hidden in Ring of Honor all those years and then what happened. But no, again, just because somebody's really good at something, sold a lot of records or gained a lot of yards or caught a lot of interceptions or what, it doesn't mean they're all going in the Hall of Fame. And Mark and Jade never got the chance to have the Hall of Fame career that they could have executed. So some of these people that didn't get in, I'm not saying they wouldn't have if things had gone differently, but some of this is just fucking ridiculous.
Well, following the Briscoes was Stanley Weston. Bill Apter's in, by the way. Nothing against Bill, but Stanley Weston should be in a Bill Apter's in, probably.
Well, no.
You don't think so?
Because Stanley Weston almost got the fucking magazines, almost put him out of business because the boys got mad at him and the promoters didn't like that he was going into business for himself and doing all that shit. And Bill had to smooth some of those relationships over.
I don't know. Bill Apter being in there, but no one else from the magazines being in there is an interesting. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And again,
if you gotta have one guy from the American magazine scene in the Hall of Fame, Bill is the star, and then you'd go to Stanley Weston and maybe Lou Sahadi.
Well, let's go back to this list. The Royal Brothers, followed by the Grand Wizard / Abdullah Farouk, followed by Adrian Street, followed by June Byers, followed by Dory Dixon, and Sputnik Monroe with 32.1% of the vote.
Sputnik would be close because of what the entirety of his career, his overall personality, and what he did in Memphis. But I still don't know that Sputnik maybe would be a shoe-in, and the rest of those names probably not. No.
Do you think there's too many questions about what actually happened or who was actually behind the desegregation of the wrestling events or what the motive was? Or do you think?
No, I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about the just amount of money he drew and the people he influenced. He had fucking Sam Phillips's kids in the wrestling business, right? He could have been Elvis if he'd
ran his fan club.
If he'd have come into Memphis 2 years before fucking he did, he could have been Elvis. But
I have the letter in my files, in the wrestling news files, that Sam Phillips' son sent in to announce that he's the president of the Sputnik Monroe fan club. Here's a signed permission slip, and I'll be running his fan club from Memphis.
And I mean, every high school yearbook from 1959, 60, 61 in Memphis, a lot of the guys had the bleach blonde spot in the front of their head. Or head, in front of their head, in front of their hair, in the
right in front of
their head in their hair. But no, the questions come from, look, no, Sputnik didn't go on a moral crusade and say this is horrible what they're doing to the African Americans. Sputnik already knew, as just as a natural heel, that he could get more heat in Memphis by appealing to the black community as a babyface, that white people would get madder at him, right? And because he was so flamboyant and he cut those promos and he trash talked people and he dressed like that, the black people in Memphis loved him. And he had nothing against them. And he would get publicity out of going to the Negro cafes, as they were termed in the newspaper, when he'd get arrested because he was white in a black establishment. And it would make the paper, and he would do all that shit. But Memphis wrestling under Les Wolf, until Roy Welch and Nick Goulas brought it into the Nashville booking office in 57, had been on its ass. And they sent Buddy Fuller in first to book it. And Buddy, one of his guys was Sputnik. And he'd used Billy Wicks, who was from Memphis. He'd used him in Alabama. So they got that program going and let Sputnik be, and they got the TV at the same time. And the houses started coming, but they still only had a small amount of the Ellis Auditorium that was partitioned off or approved, or whatever the phrase was in those days, for black people to sit in, the crow's nest, the cheap seats up top. And so the seats down at the bottom, they were still half empty, but they were turning people away from the crow's nest. And Roy Welch didn't like that any more than Sputnik did. And Sputnik got paid on the fucking house. So Roy Welch was smart enough to know that Sputnik didn't give two shits about what anybody thought of him, or any bad publicity, good publicity, or any publicity. So he had Sputnik lead the crusade. I'm not going to wrestle unless they let my black friends in. Well, goddamn, he was the hottest thing. Everybody in town wanted to see Sputnik. All the white people wanted to see Sputnik lose. All the black people just wanted to see him.
Well, that's not true. I think the white kids were different.
The kids were always in front of it, right? And Sputnik said this. He had a quote in, the name of the book. It came from Memphis. Yes.
Robert Gordon.
Yes, it talked about all of the culture that Memphis had influenced with music and blues and wrestling and etc. And Sputnik said, the white folks may hate me, but their kids don't. And the black woman that's taking care of their kids don't. And I'm infiltrating their house from the inside. And they don't realize it. And he did change the generation after that. He changed some of them because of the way that they were able to go to the matches and sit next to the other black people, and nobody had a goddamn issue. But while it was somewhat, driven by financial concerns more at the start, it did make a change, and the wrestling folks were the first ones to make it.
Hey, how come Sputnik and Fargo hated each other so bad? If you ever saw Memphis Heat, I know you have.
Yes.
All of a sudden, there's a section where they're just like bad-mouthing each other back and forth.
Here's the thing. The first go-round that the Fargos came into Nashville and worked for Gulas and Welch, that was right before, I believe, they got Memphis as part of the territory. And even though the Fargos ended up working in Memphis, and they did get over, primarily it was Nashville, Birmingham, Chattanooga, the Fabulous Fargos as a brother team. They did get over in Memphis, but it wasn't as strong as the other towns, and Sputnik was the guy. Sputnik set such a fucking precedent that was it took Fargo until Jerry Jarrett started booking in the late 60s for Fargo to be truly the top guy in Memphis over everybody that had been there and the memory of Sputnik, whereas it was earlier on in the other end of Nick's territory. And there was probably personal stuff also that I wasn't around for and don't know if anybody knows. But
would you say that before Fargo, Sputnik was the biggest star in Memphis wrestling history?
Yes, without doubt, because they never went outdoors until Sputnik came in to the ballpark. The Ellis Auditorium seated 8,000, but you could split it up in half where it was one of those double-sided auditoriums like the Downtown Municipal Auditorium in New Orleans. You only had to use half the side, but half the arena one side, but you could open it up by the curtain that went down the middle, blah, blah, blah. But still, they didn't have a history in Memphis in the 40s and early 50s of doing major houses, even selling out the Ellis Auditorium. And they had television. WMC in 1948-49, as an experiment, aired some of the matches from the Ellis Auditorium on Monday nights live. But it wasn't until Nick and Roy assumed Memphis, they paid Les Wolf for it or whatever happened, and got television, and Buddy Fuller brought Sputnik in, and suddenly that summer of 59, they're going out to the fucking ballpark. They're drawing 10,000 people. Then finally the big one with Sputnik and Wicks with Marciano as referee, the official count was, I think, 13,749. But the newspapers reported, not the promoter hyperbole. And I talked to Buddy Wayne. He was fucking there. The people wanted to get in to see that match so bad, they knocked the fucking outfield fence down. And the cops estimated there was 17 or 18,000 people in the stadium. 3,000 or 4,000 of them didn't pay. But they said, well, fuck it. What are we going to do? It's Woodstock. And they never, even Lawler would sell out the Coliseum on his hot runs. In 74, I think they did 7 or 8 of them. But they never went outdoors because they would rather turn 1,000 people away from the Coliseum than, the old ballpark where they did the Sputnik Wicks match was gone by that point. They would have had to go to the Liberty Bowl or a big college football stadium, and they didn't want to do that in that weekly territory. So Sputnik, to this day, holds the record for the most people ever to see a wrestling match in the city of Memphis due to not only that ballpark show, but also the fact that so many people said, fuck it, we're coming in whether you like it or not, because they were officially sold out. They closed the gates. So yeah, Sputnik was the biggest star in the history of Memphis wrestling before Lawler. And, whatever else happened between him and Fargo personally, I'm sure that played a part because Fargo was the man everywhere else and eventually became the man as a babyface after Sputnik had already gone in Memphis.
Well, Jim, just to go back to this list, a few other names, I will just pick out some names that did not get in. Morris Siegel, Randy Orton, Hurricane Ramirez, Edge, Yoshiaki Fujiwara, Spiros Arion, Sangre Chicana.
Who? What?
He's a Lucha Libre legend.
Okay.
El Hijo del Santo and Octagon as a tag team. Dominic DeNucci, Otto Vons, Tony Schiavone, Kendo Nagasaki.
I'm not hearing any names that I'm just incensed about or not in a Hall of Fame, but they're quite recognizable, most of them.
Ole Anderson.
Ole ought to be in the Hall of Fame.
Should Ole be in, or should Ole and Gene be in, or do you think it's two separate things? Where do you fall on Ole?
As a tag team, I'm not sure. The Andersons, they were penalized by their success in that they never had to leave the Carolinas or Georgia because they were too over there. So a lot of people didn't get to see them. But Ole, again, one of the great tag teams in Southern wrestling. The Andersons were dominant for so long. Ole is a single and with other partners. Ole's promos were some of the best. Ole, at one point, he was a fucking booker that knew what he was doing. He just...
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is it like Junkyard Dog where the bad booking is more recent?
Well, but now we're not just holding him up for inclusion because he was a booker. Everybody in the Hall of Fame did something bad at some point or rotten or whatever. But I think Ole's such a name that, in a variety of ways in wrestling, I can't see him not being in a Hall of Fame.
The Hart Foundation, James Melby, Roy Welch.
Again, just one of the 4 or 5 people that established wrestling in a large territorial part of the country. How can that not be alone? As a wrestler, as a promoter, he was a booker before they had bookers. He just went in and said, hey, you guys are coming with me. I'm going to get you over.
And again, he's not in. I mentioned Morris Siegel before. Paul Bosch is in. And Paul Bosch is in. Morris Siegel has to be in. It makes no sense otherwise. But back to the list here. Not in. Rick and Scott Steiner. Dave Brown. Tully and Arn with JJ. Wild Bull Curry.
Can I say, Tully and Arn, I can live with not being in because they really weren't a tag team that long.
2 years.
And, some other things where you say, they were each individually great, or they great while they were together, whatever. But the Steiner brothers, tag teams are eligible, and the Steiners are not in the Hall of Fame. One of the top 10 teams of the 90s at least. Maybe top 5 in the 90s.
Go back and watch Steiner Brothers matches. They stand out. The crowd reactions, the way they worked, the way they bumped, everything. Go back and watch. It stands out.
And they didn't hurt you. They were strong enough they could do that shit without hurting you. We know that from experience.
Unless you're Chris Champion and you shoot crane kick Rick Steiner in the face.
I didn't say they wouldn't do it on purpose, but no, because Stan was not into taking a variety of fucking suplexes, but there was no problem with working with the Steiners. With the Midnight to Heavenly Bodies, they were beautiful.
Let me go back to the list here. After Tully and Arn, Wild Bull Curry, Bill Goldberg.
Wait a minute, and again, Wild Bull Curry is not in a wrestling Hall of Fame, but the Beauty Pair are.
Is there a bias against ugliness?
That should be a plus in wrestling, right?
You would think.
No, again, Wild Bull Curry, for 40 years, one of the great names, one of the great faces, one of the main event fucking stars, one of the foundations of... All right, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, they could bring him back to Houston when he was an old man. It still meant something. But Bill Goldberg, Seema, Billy Joyce, Hayabusa, Becky Lynch, La Parka, the AAA version, Manami Toyota and Yamada, Joe Higuchi, Angel Blanco and Dr. Wagner, Bob Caudle, Rosie Ogawa.
I just thought if we were reading that list to Bob Caudle, when we got to his name and that followed the others, I could just see his face because he would have thought, who are those other people they just mentioned?
Well, it goes on from there, and I'll just mention dropped from next year's ballot. They got less than 10% of the vote from their region. Are the Von Brauners and Saul Weingroff,
okay.
Seth Rollins, Pirata Morgan, Mike Marino, and Sanshiro Takagi.
Well, I don't mind any of those people being dropped except the Von Brauners. Are they like a Murdoch case for tag teams?
Someone needs to make a coherent argument and explain it to people that know nothing about them, who they were, how big they were, where they worked. And again, Florida, Tennessee, all over the South.
California, they had a run, right?
Someone needs to actually explain how impressive. I mean, they were drawing better than AEW, weren't they?
Yeah.
In a lot of these towns. So, I mean, it's something that should be looked at, but also dropped from next year's ballot due to the 15-year 50% rule. Big Daddy, Jackie Pallo, and Kendo Nagasaki. And added to next year's ballot, Asuka, Zane Breslov, Psycho Clown, El Dandy, George Gordienko. I'm glad he could finally make it onto the ballot after all these years. Gran Hamada, Samoa Joe, Kento Miyahara, Cody Rhodes, Yoshihiro Takayama, Kevin Owens, Zack Sabre Jr.
Oh, for God's sake. Zack Sabre Jr., that Q-tip-headed fucking stick, that buggy whip.
He's won a lot of Observer Awards.
Sure
Mascarita Sagrada, the Usos, Volador Jr., Koichi Yoshizawa, that's interesting,
Koichi.
Bray Wyatt, and finally Sami Zayn. They will all be added to next year's ballot.
I'm, again, dumbfounded at some of these names. And even, for heaven's sake, Zack Sabre Jr., even if he was worth a shit and didn't look like he was 12 years old and fucking anemic, he's still wrestling. What is he, fucking 35 years old? How can we be talking about halls of fame for people who have to be carded to buy cigarettes?
And again, Kota Ibushi got in a few years ago. Look at the state of him today. Does he look like a Hall of Famer today just after getting in a few years ago? Here's what Dave wrote. We'll end with this. Here's what Dave wrote about the Young Bucks, because that's the one a lot of people were looking at. The Young Bucks on the first ballot came in at 55%. It was notable in that many people expected they'd get in easy, and have said that for years, based on longevity as a top tag team, and multiple Tag Team of the Year awards. In the 43-year history of our awards, no tag team has had as many points for Tag Team of the Year, and in the different match rating systems, it's generally the Young Bucks with the most highly rated matches, and that's systems I have nothing to do with.
In other words, my readers masturbate more often and more fluently and more fruitfully to the kids from Cucamonga than they do to any other boy band that they've been fans of.
Dave put a defense of himself there. That's the interesting thing. Let me read that again. In the 43-year history of our awards, no tag team has had as many points for Tag Team of the Year, and in the different match rating systems, it's generally the Young Bucks with the most highly rated matches, and that's systems I have nothing to do with.
He just influences the reader to go about his own. Here's the thing. The fucking people reading Dave's Observer are the last people that need to be rating matches, because they are looking at these goddamn gymnastics cheerleading exhibitions as if they are something to do with professional wrestling, and they will overlook these weak, pale, flabby, balding, small, minute, microscopic, not tough, very, very pussyish, smarmy-faced individuals pretending to be badasses so they can do cartwheels and backflips and round-offs. We ought to get them with some Roundup, kill the weeds and all the pests.
Well, let me finish what Dave wrote here.
Yeah.
Add in, they're changing the game both with opening up merchandise and even more. The formation of AEW adds historical significance. They actually may have done better last year, given they had something of a cold year this year as far as titles and such. Such being drawing fans, ratings, or getting people to want to cheer for them. And AEW declined in popularity, Normally, I'd view 55% as being people who will eventually get in, but the Bucks also have people who won't vote for them for a number of reasons, perhaps the biggest being the idea they don't belong because they never worked on top in WWE.
Oh, good Lord.
Do you think that's the biggest reason people wouldn't vote for them?
No. There's a lot of great talent that didn't work on top in WWE. These guys just suck. And they're obnoxious about the fact that they suck. They think they're great. So, no, they would kill the business, change the business, whatever. If you're a wrestling fan, if you're a fan of professional wrestling, they offend you. And apparently, they offend a lot of the former fans they had in AEW because people won't even watch them on that program now. And that's the only audience they had that could stomach their goddamn effluvia.
Well, that was the Observer 2023 Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame class. Congratulations to all the inductees. And if you're the Young Bucks, you may have woken up today thinking you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. How could you not? When you think of the Wrestling Observer, you think of the Young Bucks. And you may say, what the hell has happened here? You may want to sue.
You may want to just lay back and let me take over on this one, Brian, because I'll tell you, here's the thing. Here is the exact situation. If you feel that you should have been voted into a Hall of Fame for what you do, just because everybody likes you, whether you're any good at it or not, and your friends want to vote for you, and you don't get in, well, that's when you might want to sue. That didn't make any more sense than yours, did it?
None, no.
Just play the music.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. He'll sue the rest.
You know, Brian, I've just realized that we had the answer earlier on in the program. Tony Khan is down one legal beagle, one ace barrister. The person in charge of his legal business and efforts up until now has been transferred away from the wrestling to some other part of the Khan empire. Khan! So, somebody needs to replace that person that's been moved on out for whatever reasons. I think Tony ought to call Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 877-50-STEVE. Because if Tony had called Steve New, then Stephen P. New could go over there and say, Tony, you need to leave this whole thing to me. You're fucking up here, pal. And he could go in there and right the wrongs. He could rewrite the contracts. He could tell people keep their mouth shut. He could yank a knot in somebody's tail, as Mama Cornette used to say. Get that place in ship-shape order. Dust off his hands and consider another fine job done, don't you think?
I think Tony should get his own attorney and leave our attorney alone. It's a conflict of interest. I'm thinking about suing Tony Khan myself for sexual harassment.
Hey! He told me he was only going to be friendly to you. But I'll tell you, here's the thing. Stephen P. New, he's the man for you no matter what kind of legal issue you might have to bring up. And he doesn't need to get transferred away because he doesn't dilly-dally. He doesn't dip his pen in company ink. He's there to work for you and you only. As he goes about handling your wrongful termination or your injury or illness caused by someone else's negligence or just outright obnoxiousness. Again, Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 877-50-STEVE is his new number. He had to get his number changed because it was written on so many jail cell walls because he's the only person that can get a lot of these people sprung anymore.
Once
Hey,
again,
by the way, when I did not know that Megan was a real person, remember that one time that Tony got a little upset at me because I said something that he felt violated the non-disclosure agreement?
oh, yeah, I don't even remember what it was. Yes.
Yes, but I got a message on my machine And Megan, she has a bit of an accent and she speaks very quickly. And I was not aware that she existed on the planet at this time. So I got a message from somebody named Megan so-and-so saying that she was calling me on behalf of Tony Khan and I should call her right away. Well, of course, I didn't fucking do that because I thought it was some Mark ribbing me. And she called Stephen P. New. And he's the one that had to set her straight on what would and wouldn't go on. And he did that, boom, just like that. So if he can do it to her, he can do it to anybody. But he didn't do it to her because I said he doesn't have inappropriate relationships. He just said it to her. He didn't do it to her. Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com,
877-507-8383.
Yeah.
An easy way to remember it as opposed to Mr. throwing out names and numbers.
Well, hello, Mr. First Name Bunch of Numbers.
Well, I got a few questions before we wrap things up. I want to tell everyone, because we've had a few requests, we will, before the end of the year, do a show that'll be nothing but questions.
Yes, we will.
It just won't be today. But we're going to get a few in for you guys, submitted via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. Jim, here's a question from Rob Reynolds. Did Jim consider bringing Steve Austin into Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
What?
Steve seems to like Jim's work and Southern-style wrestling, so it seems a better fit than ECW.
Well, consider bringing him in. It doesn't really take into account the whole scope of the matter. If I had heard, yeah, Steve Austin wants to come in and work for you for $100 a night, then yes, I'll help him carry his bags in. But no, remember when the Bodies and I and the Rock and Roll did the thing in WCW, that's where I first met Steve Austin. I had seen him on the Dallas, the world-class shows, and he got a lot of attention when they had the Valet feud with him and Chris Adams and Jeannie and etc. And you could tell he was Tony. And you could tell he was a good worker. And then we went down there, and that's when Austin and Pillman were the Hollywood Blondes. And, we had a couple of 8-mans on TV with the Blondes and the Bodies against Steamboat and Shane Douglas and the Rock and Roll. And those were great matches. They just clicked, boom, because I already knew Pillman loved Pillman. And so, yes, if I had had the opportunity to bring Steve Austin in, I would have done it in a heartbeat. And I would have used him as well as I could possibly use him. But at that point, when he was fired by Bischoff, he had still been in WCW for a couple of years, making probably $100,000, 125, 150. I don't know what the exact amount was, but most of the contracts were for that back then. And I was not going to pay him anywhere near that, nor did I honestly think that it would be long before he went to the WWF, because I viewed him as that level of talent. When I saw that he went to ECW, well, that made sense because I guess Todd Gordon had a better budget. It wasn't Paul's money at that point in time. But I knew that Paul was paying guys per night guarantees enough to, get their attention.
Remember, he was just doing promos at first because he was still hurt. So the idea that you would have brought him into Smoky Mountain at the same time, he wouldn't have been able to wrestle or anything just yet.
Well, yeah, and I would not have brought him in to just do promos because even though they were good promos, I could afford to bring somebody in to just do interviews that was hurt and couldn't fucking wrestle. And just because Paul wanted to do that, because Paul's audience was smart. They wanted good promos. The Smoky Mountain Wrestling audience were wrestling fans. They didn't care about how good the promos were as long as the goddamn babyfaces won. Brian, am I overstating this case?
No, you're not.
Okay. And then it bit Paul in the ass because he brought Austin in to do promos and he paid him to do these promos. And then when Austin was ready to wrestle, he signed with the WWF. Did he ever wrestle in ECW?
No, he did have a match or two because he lost. I think he was pinned by Mikey Whipwreck in the ECW title match.
Yes, he did one job on the way out because he'd been doing all the promos. But so it didn't do anything for Paul's business. It increased some talk from people who weren't in Paul's territory and couldn't buy a ticket to see his shows, but it was just a brief thing. So yes, all things being equal, I would have booked Steve Austin in a heartbeat, but I didn't consider bringing him in because it was foolish. Because if I had brought him in, when he got well, he would only been there for a month or two, and he would have gone to the WWF because they were paying bigger money.
Jim, Amanda McCauley from the Cult of Cornette Facebook group wants to know, what is your favorite Thanksgiving side?
Ooh, it is not a common everyday thing, but a lot of people eat it. But my mother made a broccoli and cheese casserole. And it's got the cheese whiz in it and the Miracle Whip and then crumbs on top and baked, and it got a little crunch to it, but the cheesy goodness, whatever, that's my favorite. Stacy calls it Mammy's broccoli and cheese crack, because once you start eating it, you can't stop.
Do you guys still make it?
Oh, yeah. She makes it again, nobody makes it like Mom, right? Just like nobody makes Aunt Lola's breakfast sausage gravy like she did from scratch. But still, we make it, most every year. It sometimes Thanksgiving, sometimes Christmas. Every once in a while, Arbor Day.
When do you think the holiday season officially starts? Do you think it's the beginning of November? Do you think it's after Halloween? Do you think it's after Thanksgiving? What do you think?
I think it's got to be from Thanksgiving weekend to New Year's Day. Let's not goddamn make this a whole fucking 3-month period, for heaven's sake. The holidays go from Thanksgiving through Christmas into New Year's, and then look forward to Valentine's Day as the next one you're going to get.
Jim, our next question here from the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by Justin Marple. When OVW had to stop running the Gardens before the Six Flags deal, I remember hearing Jim say Freedom Hall was too expensive. Did they ever look into rent at the Broadbent Arena?
No. Because Broadbent Arena is a secondary arena at the Fair and Exposition Center complex in the shadow of Freedom Hall. Freedom Hall was, until they built the Yum Center downtown in Louisville, Freedom Hall was the place to go in Louisville if you were the Rolling Stones, University of Louisville Cardinals basketball team, the big events, right? And Freedom Hall, I'm going to say, opened in the late 50s. And that replaced the Louisville Gardens as the big building in town. And Broadbent Arena was never a destination point for concerts or bands or the Harlem Globetrotters or Holiday on Ice, any of the touring shows. It was primarily used because, especially at the fairgrounds and fair time, livestock shows. Every time I've been in Broadbent Arena, it smells like goddamn cow shit. But it's a big floor, an oblong floor where you can have rodeos and, equestrian events. This is horse country. And it seats probably a little bit more than the Louisville Gardens, but it's a bigger floor, a bigger footprint overall, because you're talking about having rodeos and things. And they do the big car shows. They've done them in there. But it was more expensive than the Gardens, and not necessarily a great benefit to it. Everybody in town knew where the Louisville Gardens was. Everybody that's ever lived here. And everybody knew where Freedom Hall was. But Broadbent Arena, you had to kind of explain a little bit, because it's not the first thing people think of when they think of the Fair and Exposition Center. So it wasn't a familiar building. It's only housed on and off wrestling events. Maybe there's been 7 or 8 in history there. And at the same time, it would still be...
Whose events were there?
WWE ran house shows there once or twice. I think, God damn it, I'm trying to think, maybe WCW was there. I think we were there one time. No, that was the Commonwealth with Crockett. Crockett never ran it. WCW ran it a couple times. WWE ran a couple of house shows there. You wouldn't want to do TV there. And I think maybe not even that many then. it's just, and you're still renting the building from the fair board, and it's not as cheap as the gardens. So that wasn't ever something that we wanted to do with OVW because we didn't think we could make money on the thing. Unless someone like Clear Channel bought, the show and we knew what the money coming in was and we knew how to make it work. But otherwise, no. And that building's been there for quite a while. Jarrett never even ran it. When they had to look for another place, a couple of times when the gardens was being renovated, they went to a local high school rather than, or to the old Columbia gym, I think.
How much of being a promoter is worrying about losing your buildings?
Well, depends on whether you like the one you got or not. Yeah, for most of the guys and the promoters in the territory days, if you had lost one of your key 4 or 5 buildings, there was no way to replace it. If you were Crockett in the Carolinas when it was very successful, there were a couple of, you could go to the biggest buildings in town. But most of the territories, except for Vince in the Northeast, and when they would get hot, they didn't want to go to the biggest building in town, the most expensive. They wanted to go to the secondary building that used to be the big building that was 6,000 or 8,000 seats, that was affordable, and that they could get multiple dates in. And well, it hurt. That was the downfall, really, of the Georgia territory as a really big money territory for the talent. When they could run the city auditorium 3 nights or 3 weeks of the month and then take the big show to the Omni, they could still run weekly and they could make money. But when the city auditorium closed, they couldn't run a fucking 16,000 seat building every Friday night. And the rent was 4 or 5 times what the city auditorium was, or easily. So they had to cut back on the number of shows, which cut back on the gross, which cut back on the big payoffs that the guys in the Georgia territory were used to getting for Atlanta. Things like that would have a ripple effect.
Jim, our next question from the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by Marcus Rose. Who was a better in-ring worker, Brad Armstrong or Barry Windham?
God damn, it's like, the gas chamber or the electric chair, which is more deadly. You couldn't, at one point in each of their career, there was almost nothing in the way of their athletic work that you could find fault in. Neither guy was the greatest promo that ever lived, but they were impeccable in the ring in almost every way. I can't. Barry was pushed harder, was with Dusty for so long, and had those matches with Flair. But I think he was only better, in quotes, because he got more opportunities at that level than Brad did. You can't pick between those two guys.
When was peak Barry Windham? When was peak Brad Armstrong?
Peak Barry was what, 85 through 87, 88? Brad?
But like something like that, though, do you look at, like, when I say peak, and, it's hard to narrow it down, but if you had to pick like one year, would you say 87 or would you say a different year?
Well, the Crockett Cup 87, Flair and Windham, one of the great NWA World title matches that are caught mostly on video. The Battle of the Belts was another one. That was late 86, right? The thing is, Barry always had it because he had it in his genes and his bloodline, but he was so skinny when he started. And then he filled out by what, 83-ish? And for about 5 years there, holy shit, what a baby face and what a goddamn worker. But then he started getting heavier. The Mulligan genes took over, and injuries and, the musical chairs with the territories, back from Vince to Atlanta to Vince to. Brad was more consistent in terms of his in-ring talent from just a couple of years after he broke in to really a couple of years, before his full-time career was over with. He was always good. Always.
All right, Jim, our final question here, and it's kind of cut off, so maybe you could fill in the gaps.
Okay. Now guess the question, ladies and gentlemen.
From the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, this was sent in by Shannon Romans. I saw that the Midnight Express had a War Games match at a house show in 1987. My question is, does Jim remember it? And was it a good match? And it appears the cutoff result here is from the Nassau Coliseum.
Yes.
Ron Garvin, Dusty Rhodes, Barry Windham, and the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. Big, I assume Bubba, and then
Big Bubba.
It cuts off, so I don't know who the rest of the team was.
And oh, God damn it. Well, that was the day before Starrcade 87. That was our debut in the Nassau Coliseum. And Dusty wanted to go in with, as big a goddamn match as he could, and it was War Games. And hold on one second, because
I found it. It is Big Bubba, Bobby, Stan, Arn, and Tully.
Oh, God damn it. Hold on here. I'm trying to reach around the corner and open this cabinet door the wrong way. There's my Midnight Express scrapbook. I will go to that particular place. It was November 25th, 1987, Nassau Coliseum in Nassau, Long Island.
That's right.
What?
That's twice now you've said Nassau Coliseum in a funny way here on the program.
Nassau, I don't know. Nassau, whatever. The gate was $126,000. There was almost 10,000 people. They charged high prices for that because it was the New York market. And as I said, Dusty put his top 10 guys in the War Games match to try to make an impression, because that was our first time in Vince's backyard. So Dusty, Garvin, Windham, and the Rock and Roll against the Midnight, Bubba, Tully, and Arn. And obviously the baby faces went over. And, again, every time we went, I remember the first time in Los Angeles at the Forum, 10,000 people, $100,000 house. But when we went out of our comfort zone, our being Crockett, the Carolinas, Virginia, the Southeast, the Midwest, Chicago, Philly, Baltimore, sticking in that area, we were competitive on an ongoing basis. But because of the lack of local television, really strong, highly viewed local syndicated TV to back up the cable, we went to Boston or to New York or to Los Angeles or Seattle. I think the first time we were in Seattle, we did $100,000, but we couldn't keep it. That was the problems with trying to expand into a lot of these markets. And it was the same thing for Vince. He couldn't draw in Greensboro or Dallas or Memphis. But it seemed like that we were trying to go into more unfamiliar territory than he was. But anyway, that was the War Games. And then the next day was Chicago, Starrcade 87. And it was a sellout. And we did $180,000 there. So that was $300,000 in 2 days at Thanksgiving time that Crockett grossed. But that ended up being a fucking bad thing, because Starrcade 87 was blocked off of all the pay-per-view systems because of Vince's threat. So he grossed $300,000 at the houses, but because of the cost of the Nassau Coliseum and because of being fucked by Vince on pay-per-view, he ended up, it was a disastrous weekend. And me and Bobby and Stan made $10,765 apiece for Starrcade, and I think another $1,000 or $1,500 apiece for the Nassau Coliseum show. So, we were just thrilled with the check, but we're like, why are we doing Starrcade in Chicago in front of $180,000 sellout when it was drawing $300 and something thousand in Greensboro because it was a bigger building? And why are we going to fucking New York to do $126,000 when we do almost that in Charlotte. And it's a more expensive building, and everybody's got to fly. So, these things happen. You see what I mean, Brian?
I see what you mean. Real quick before we wrap things up, I know there were no royalties, obviously, back then. Jesse Ventura changed that with his lawsuit against Vince and the WWF. But do you know, was anything ever said to you about how many units Starrcade 86 sold on VHS?
Yeah, well, I know vaguely. And by the way, there were royalties. In our contracts that we signed with Crockett, we were to get royalties on video VHS releases and things like that. And starting in January 1987, I believe, when they released the VHS of Starrcade 86, about once a month after promos, I would go, when we were at the office on Briarbend, I'd knock on Jimmy Crockett's office door and lean in and, Jimmy, just wanted to see if you'd heard anything about the royalties from that videotape of Starrcade. And he'd said, not yet, I'll let you know. And then I found out from, was it Steve Chamberlain or somebody else that worked for Turner Home Entertainment? The fucking thing went gold. And gold for a VHS tape in those days, you had to sell 50,000 units. And I'm pretty sure that our Starrcade VHS went gold before anything that Vince released on VHS. But the bottom line of the whole thing is, after about 6 to 9 months of asking, I quit asking. And when we started renegotiating in, what was it, March or April of 1988 for a new contract, I brought that up to Jimmy. You know, we're supposed to get those royalties. Oh, well, that was a deal that we had with Turner Home Entertainment, and we kind of got jacked on that. But these new deals that Turner's doing, so we never got a goddamn dime for Starrcade 80s past the initial payoff. We didn't get any royalties whatsoever for the VHS tape that went gold.
And that was their best-selling video by far ever, because
yes,
when I was a kid, even here in, like, you know, well, not here, I'm in New Jersey now, but in New York on Long Island, that was the one Crockett/WCW video you found everywhere.
Yeah. And that commercial played weekly on TBS in front of millions of people for months and months and months. Yeah, we didn't get nothing.
And we got nothing else, and that's the end of the drive-thru. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, the drive-thru has closed. The old pentatonic back here on the desk.
Hey, I thought he was still teaming with Felix.
We'll be back with Phoenix and Pentatonic on the Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast before you know it, with the full gear review and so much more. And of course, next week, right back here on the drive-thru. Go through the archive, patreon.com/Cornette. $5 a month, get you access to the archive going back to 2013, patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Full episodes, clips from the episodes, omnibus collections. Share them with everyone you love and hate with the exclusive Travis Heckel artwork.
Share them, give them away.
The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. What's going on, Jim?
Everybody knows the answer to that question. The Midnight Express 40th Anniversary action figure commemorative set is now available. Get them while they're hot, along with all the other holiday goodies to please the people at JimCornette.com.
At JimCornette.com. And of course, the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 877-507-8383.
Or for normal humans, 50-Steve.
Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience and next week back here on the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!